What's up, Fortnite fam? Miniminer here, coming at you with another analytical breakdown. Chapter 4 has brought a brand new mechanic to Fortnite called Reality Augment. Let's take a look at some of the best ones to use, break down some of the newest additions, and highlight some potentially underrated augments to try out in your next game. Reality augments allow players to activate a variety of abilities that alter the way you play Fortnite. Every 2.5 minutes in a match, players will be given the choice between two different augments. Once activated, their chosen augment will function throughout the rest of that game. Be aware that once you make your choice, it is not possible to go back, so choose wisely. If neither augment option tickles your fancy, do not fear. You have the ability to re-roll and choose between two different ones. The first reroll per match is free of charge. However, any further rerolls will cost you 100 gold bars. So don't pass up the opportunity to open a safe or cash register the next time you see one. You can choose up to a maximum of 4 augments per game, so experiment with different combinations and see what works best for you. Some popular augments such as Stormmark and Chug Gunner are not in competitive playlists this season, which means that competitive players won't be able to make use of them in tournament games. But let's talk about some augments that you will find in competitive games. Quite possibly the most powerful of the bunch is Forecast. This augment was recently adjusted and now will only reveal the location of the next 3 zones after it's been chosen. This is still so useful for competitive players though, as you'll have the edge over those that don't have this augment by being able to plan ahead. Knowing where the next zone will be is vital information on how and when to rotate, and also where to position yourself to find success. Giving your assault rifle a boost has never been easier. First Assault makes the first shot in your rifle deal bonus damage, resulting in a huge increase in overall damage output from range. This is an incredibly popular augment for competitive players, as dealing extra damage helps to keep a team above the Storm Surge threshold. Combine this augment with Rifle Recycle, which gives your weapon a chance to not consume ammo when shot. This augment means that running out of ammo is almost impossible, so feel free to keep firing to your heart's content, if you have this augment enabled. In Chapter 4 Season 1, the pistol already has huge potential for use in competitive games. Now, make what's already strong even stronger with the Pistol Amp Augment. This augment, as the name suggests, amps up the magazine size greatly to a huge 22 bullets per mag. Combine this with the Light Fingers augment, which increases the reload speed of weapons that use light ammo, and you've got yourself a dangerous weapon that can be effective from all ranges. Danger Hero is one of the newer augments to be added into Fortnite, and while it doesn't seem too valuable, in certain situations it can save your entire game. It works by briefly regenerating your health and movement speed when your shield breaks, which can save you from getting eliminated on multiple occasions. Get hit for a large amount of damage in a fight? Allow the augment to automatically heal your health while you drink some shields. Or even make a quick escape with the increased movement speed that you gain immediately after your shield breaks. For teams that landed a split drop or have a rough start to their game, there are some augments that can save the day. The Peely's Plunder augment grants players with a map that will help locate buried treasure somewhere on the island. This option is often overlooked as the treasure map takes up an inventory slot. However, those that do choose to make the early sacrifice will be rewarded with some top-tier loot, courtesy of Peely himself. The extra loot that this augment provides will bolster any split drop or help those with lesser loot compete with the rest of the lobby. Give a player a fish and they can heal once. Give a player Jelly Angler and they'll heal for a lifetime. The Jelly Angler augment grants players with a fishing rod that can be used in any body of water. Forget floppers or shieldfish, because this rod will only fish up jellyfish. Competitive players that are below on Storm Surge can stack these jellyfish inside of their box and eliminate some of the risk of going for peeps. A few new reality augments were added in the 23.30 update this week. Let's break down some of the most useful ones that could shake things up in future competitive games. If you're a fan of nature, then the Harvester augment is for you. When foliage around the island is destroyed with this augment active, it can drop big bush bombs and some forageable items too. This augment also increases the effectiveness of foraged items. Combine this with the Bush Warrior augment to allow you to gain up to 150 effective HP while sitting in a bush, whether that be a natural bush or from one of your big bush bombs. This saves valuable heals when rotating or going for surge damage. Expect some teams to sit in bushes going for tags this season, so the next time you see one, tread carefully. Hide and traverse within the shadows with the new Shadow Striker Reality Augment. When activated, this augment grants the ability to find shadow bombs from eliminations and containers around the island. Competitive players will surely look out for this augment when making decisions, as it will give players a whole new way to traverse through the map, making endgame rotations that much safer. If you're not lucky enough to have Shadow Striker, then there are other mobility-based augments to choose from. For example, more parkour that rewards the use of mantling or hurdling with energy, the same effect that a slap juice or berry would have. Or even select soaring sprints to get an increased jump height and a low gravity effect while sprinting to bounce your way through the endgame. Icy Slide is another brand new augment added to Fortnite. It gives you an icy speed boost while sliding to help you traverse the map in a more efficient way. Competitive players will find huge benefit in the speed boost that the ice offers in endgame situations. Just be careful not to slip and slide into another player's box though, as that could result in a less than cool encounter. Experimenting with different augment combinations is one of the many ways to spice up competitive gameplay this season and play the game your way. Don't forget to watch the upcoming FNCS to see all of these augments in action, and we'll see you on the battle bus. Beep beep.
I am very excited to compete in the first major this year.
You will see complete domination from me and Triple in Major 1.
The competition is not ready for the things I'm about to do.
This year I'm gonna be one of the best IGLs.
You're gonna see a lot of solo clutches, a lot of good eliminations.
I'm really good in rotation, so when they want to rotate, I'm already there.
If you land on me, you'll be spectating more than you'll be playing.
I think I can quit the game for a year, come back and still qualify grands.
They should be scared of me and Scram because we're gonna be tearing through it.
We're going to win Major 1.
You're gonna get sent back to the lobby.
I will be better than you, no matter what you do.
Thomas HD, watch out bro, I'm coming for you.
I'm coming for that Major 1 title.
Let's go, bro!
Welcome back, Fortnite fam, to the FNCS. Yesterday, we watched NA just bring the absolute fire. And now we're here to see what EU can bring to the table as well. Now, in case you missed it, FNCSs are no longer just a self-contained thing. Now they're majors, and they culminate into a single point later on in the year, the Global Championship. That's right. So not only are we looking to just be the best here in Major number 1, no, we're also thinking in the future about that Global Championship. Now, on today's broadcast, we'll be breaking down all the action, talking about the meta, matchups, what we can expect, all of that and more. But first, let's talk about the broadcast schedule. If you like what you're watching, you're like, dude, Fortnite's pretty dope. I want to watch more. When are you guys going to be here? Don't worry, we got you covered. Every single weekend, we'll be right here watching that Fortnite action. Now, really important, Grand Finals, March 4th and 5th. You don't want to miss that, all right? That's the conclusion of Major number 1. There's so much action that you want to watch on that day specifically. You don't want to miss out. So you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, so is the major still like an FNCS then? Is there prize money, Acts of Champions? Yeah, it's all the same. There's still a ton of prize money available for duos that can make it to the Grand Finals. $200,000 for that duo that can come in first place. Acts of Champions and a guaranteed spot going straight through to the Global Championship. That's right. There's a lot on the line here, but of course, I can't do this alone. You know, I need some help from my friends. So let me introduce Vivid and Jenny Smiles. Yo, what's up, guys? Here we are once again. Yesterday, we watched the action in NA East. Now we're here to do it all again in EU. How are you guys feeling about the competition?
Woo, this is amazing. We had NA yesterday, but EU is honestly such a region that is full of excitement. These players are just unlike any other players we've seen. They're incredible.
Yeah, I love the fact that you're mentioning excitement. The big man, the big brain, 11-2K, it's all he has been talking about all week, all weekend. EU. Now that we're here, so the players have to live up to the hype. We'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, they had an opportunity to watch the games from yesterday. Are you guys maybe hoping they bring some of those maybe learnings into today?
Yeah, I mean, 100%, right? Not only did they get to watch NA happen yesterday, but then they also, some of these players, if they qualified for it, they had that solo cash cup just before this. So, you know, some of them got to be warmed up, and some of those strategies have to be set in stone for what they're going to bring out today.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, you have these teams that were able to watch the NA, so they're aware of, you know, some of the tactics and some of the things they brought to the table yesterday. So they're going to step it up, have that VOD review, and make it happen.
Yeah, that's right. Well, let's get into all of the breakdown here. Let's talk about some of the head-to-head matchups we'll be seeing on the broadcast today. Shore Shack. Apparently, there's a couple duos that think, hey, this is the POI I want to be at. I want to fight over this. We got Janice going up against Andalex. So what can we expect out of this head-to-head matchup?
You know, Zeke, there's just a lot of this going on around the entire map. We mentioned it multiple times that there's just not as many POIs on this map. So you get a lot of these split drops being fought for. And Jenny, I'm curious, like, what do you think is going to happen right off the rip here?
Yeah, so you have Janice, they are landing top of this landmark, and then you have Andalex landing the south side. So what they're really going to be fighting for is that blue house. The blue house is that area that has all the good loot, that has really what the main point of dropping there is, you know? If they aren't going to go for this house, there's not much loot, there's not much reason to land there. So that fight is definitely going to take place. And I also think it's important to point out that they have been landing here in multiple occurrences throughout leading up. You've seen them be actually able to take out their opponents. So, you know, it's really anyone's game.
100%. And one thing that I want to point out about split shops, right, that is so important is that the thing that's so vital about them, and the reason why they're often so good, is that you can cover so much area, right? We'll see the duos actually split up and just cover so much ground. But when you're getting contested like this, like Jenny just mentioned, both of these teams are actually going to be landing right on that blue house, which means that you're not actually covering all that space that you're used to seeing. So that does one of two things. That opens up all of the area that you're used to landing at for surrounding duos to kind of land at. But then also, when you actually win that fight at that blue house, if you do, then you have to walk all the way over and get all that loot. So your rotations get so delayed, which is why it's going to be so tough for this duo. But like Jenny mentioned, they've had this matchup throughout some of these elite cups, so they got to be used to it by now.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to kind of highlight another matchup here over at Slappy Shores. And we're going to talk about Slappy Shores in a minute because I really want to touch on that subject. But first, Tayson going up against Vico here at the Shores. What can you guys tell me about this head-to-head?
Yeah, so you have Tayson and Mustache, which is a insane duo to keep your eyes on. Both of these players individually are just such good players. They're coming together. They're just a powerhouse, you know? And then you have Vico coming in with Kylie. However, Vico has been changing up his duos quite a bit, so it's a little bit newer of a duo, so we're gonna kind of have to see how they're able to play with, I guess you'd say, not as much practice, you know, because Tayson and Mustache, you know, they're very comfortable together. They have played well together, and they're able to make it happen. Landing at Sleppy, it's, you know, you might not see a fight happen there, but if you do, it'll be very interesting to watch.
Yeah, the one thing that I want to kind of make a connection to is actually what happened over here on NA yesterday, right? Like, we saw multiple times, there was like 4+ teams actually surrounding the area. So, you know, we have this matchup going on. Whether they fight or not, we'll have to see what happens. But they always got to keep in the back of their mind, like, a lot of these teams actually want to make a rotation in here. And then, you know, shout out to Vico. I got to actually speak with him at the Invitational, and he's just such a humble guy. He's always feels so prepared, and he wants it more than anybody. But now that roadmap has been laid out, and there's going to be another one of those in-person events this year, he's going to want it more. So I'm excited to see what he does here in Major 1.
Dude, it's all about that future thinking, right?
100%.
Now, I said we talk about it, so let's go over here.
Yeah.
Slappy Shores. Okay, so we're seeing a lot of duos fight over this POI, and I kind of want to ask you guys, like, why is this POI so valuable? Like, what is the thing that maybe not everyone is, like, catching?
Right, so this POI, you know, you can see it's just a large POI. So there's so much space, there's so many chests. On top of that, there's so much metal there. If you get metal at the beginning, you really don't have to worry about the end game. You don't have to be worrying about getting refreshes and metal off any other players. So it sets you up perfectly for end game. On top of that, you have slurp trucks, you have slurps areas. You can get so much shield. It's just a prime time location to drop at.
Yeah, and I kind of want to give everybody at home watching, like, what they can kind of expect. So if anything outside of this actually happens, then somebody's switching up. So typically what we'll see is Tayson and Mustache actually land on the north side of this POI, and then Vico and Kylie will most likely be landing on that south side. Now, the north side is good because it does have more chests. However, that south side has all of that slap juice. That being said, you really need to have control over that bridge, right? Because that's the main connecting point between both of the sides of that POI. And Tayson is the one that loves to make sure that he has control over that, because that does one of two things. Not only does it make sure that you keep eyes on that south side of the map, but it also keeps eyes on the surrounding area as well. Make sure none of those teams that I was just mentioning kind of make their rotation in. And then, of course, that capture point right in the middle of the bridge there, making sure that they get just that little bit of extra loot.
Yeah, and that is really good to point out that the teams surrounding this area, there are so many. So if they don't have that head-to-head with Vico's team, you will see them try to get some shots off of the rotating teams around for extra storm surge.
Yeah, good stuff, good stuff. I mean, how are you guys expecting things like augments? Yesterday on NA, we had an opportunity to talk about forecasts, things like that. Are we going to see more of the same coming out of today? Maybe some different things?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Danger Hero was kind of like the MVP yesterday. We talked about how Forecast was actually so strong, but so many clutch moments were actually able to happen because of Danger Hero popping. For you guys at home, basically what happens is if your shield gets cracked, then you have this ability that you kind of activate on you. It's like popping a pepper or like a chili chug splash. You get increased movement speed, and then your health actually heals up as well for at least 75. So it's really good in those clutch endgame scenarios.
Yeah, especially if you're a solo player, because if you're a solo player and, you know, your teammate is the one that's holding a lot of the consumables during endgame, you actually get that extra and you're chilling. You can make rotates and make it through probably better placements so that you can end up hopefully in that top 10 placement spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So we've talked about a couple things here for you, Fortnite fam, and don't worry, we have way more to break down over the course of these next 6 games, but there's 2 more faces we'd love to introduce you to. They're your casters. It's Levin2K and Jacob PR. You know, I guess it's true what they say, like, as you age, you actually get shorter. Levin, for some reason, you're shorter than Jacob today. I don't know what's going on, but hey, that's the one. It's great to see you here, both of you. Welcome back. Levin, I kind of want to lead on you specifically. EU's kind of your home. It's your forte, right?
Yes.
So how are you expecting things to go coming into today's competition?
I'm super excited. As you said, right, EU is sort of my stomping ground, right? I don't know how we're here in EU and there's no Europeans other than myself, but nevertheless, I'm very excited because the level of play we see from this region over and over again, it's on another level, in my opinion, of course. And so I'm expecting to see that level all throughout the major.
Yeah, I mean, I've been blessed. I've casted NA West, EU, NA East, back on over to EU.
What's your favorite?
And there's one storyline. We'll see after today. Ask me that one again after today. But I want to talk about that revenge storyline, even though it's not too much for revenge. But Queasy and Vino, they went ahead and dropped on Seti and Cammy, a historic play. I still agree that was the best play of the tournament. It didn't work out for them. They had progressively worse placements through the Elite Cup. But this is FNCS. This is a different ball game. It's time for them to get their revenge.
Yeah, they're just an animal waiting, right? They're just like, yeah, we're not doing well. Yeah, of course. Okay, EU time, let's go. Because that would be huge for them, right? To make such a splash, especially off the back of the Invitational, right?
Yeah, 100%. And, I want to, go ahead and put so much emphasis on the fact that that Invitational was so fun for every single player. But then, if you're a player that didn't actually make it to that Invitational, then you got to want it more because you kind of just had to sit at home and watch all these players not only compete, but have the time of their lives at that. And like I mentioned before, the roadmap is laid out, the Global Championship at the end of the year, which makes every single major just that much more important.
And look, there are questions around Queasy and Veno, but I think it's a bit overstated in terms of their performances leading up. They've had brilliant performances leading up. Even if you look at the 2 rounds before this to get here to Session 3, one of the best performances we've seen from anybody in any region, right? They were absolutely dominant. The only team, I believe, to get first place on both days, right, of the, sort of sessions we had to make it here. So in my eyes, I'm not worried, especially when you have Queasy fragging out. These guys had so many eliminations. They are in a mood and almost, like you said, a revenge tour type of mood. So I like to see the fact that coming in today, they're going to do what they do. I think they're probably going to win it. That's who I would predict if I had to predict somebody. And yeah, just a top team in my eyes.
Me and Levin often go back and forth, right? NA East versus EU. But I found one thing that me and him actually agree on.
Okay.
And it's the fact that Vino is the best player in the world right now.
Three Musketeers? Three Musketeers?
Okay. And then we got 3 lines on it.
Hey,
always a bandwagoner, isn't there?
Hey.
Okay, all right. What do you guys think coming into today? Like, now that EU has kind of watched NA East, we know EU way more aggressive. Are we just going to see some of the craziest plays we've seen?
I think we can expect that level, right? Today, there's going to be a lot of teams contesting each other, not just at POIs, right? I think that's where we typically expect to see teams contest at POIs, but there's a lot of split drops where you have multiple teams landing in similar areas, and that has potential for crazy amounts of chaos, just in terms of the standings going every which way.
Yeah, with the shockwave hammers, the different augments, different ways to cause a lot of chaos, there's always going to be aggression in this meta, but I think EU has one thing. They do calculated aggression. They're making sure they pick and choose every move, and they make sure it's the right one, even though watching it on the outside, it looks like they're just trying to get in the box.
Well, gentlemen, thank you guys so much. Looking forward to the games, and I know you guys at home are as well. So let's get ready to get into all of the action. Buckle up. This is game number 1 here in EU.
It is time to see some of the best players in Europe compete in the FNCS Major 1. I'm very much looking forward to it. I know Jacob is as well. We have a fun day on our hands.
If yesterday was any indication, North American East, of what we're going to see here on EU, I am ready for it. We got some high-flying action ready to come and be right before us. And we have some players that have maybe switched up teams looking to take that top spot in EU. And we know nobody's going to let that one go easy.
Yeah, a bunch of new teams are upon us, and I think that causes for excitement, right, in terms of new stories, new chapters in these players' careers. In my opinion, right, a lot of these newer form teams are the ones I'm super excited about, the likes of a Malibuka and Thomas. That combination seems almost unfair, right? Like, it shouldn't even be allowed to happen, and we've seen them dominate so far this season. I'm looking forward to seeing them do it again here today. I think most people will probably have them predicted as a team to finish today first place. What do you think about that duo?
I mean, I think there's quite a bit of duos here that are contending for that first place spot, but I actually want to see one of these teams that are paired with an FNCS champion and a player that is lacking that accolade. This is a chance for somebody to really rise up the ranks and check that one off their bucket list.
Yeah, of course, right? And when you are surrounded by a former FNCS champion in their own right, it gives you that extra confidence, right? You know they have the minerals to go out there and win in the big competitions. And trust me, we have a bunch of players. We're littered with those in this lobby, so I can't wait to just hop right in.
I almost think I feel like I have that same confidence. Casting next to you, this is your region. This is your domain. I can't get ready to let this one get loose. But there's one thing we have to watch out for. I don't think we really talked about it. We'll talk about it during the game. Battle Bus is ready. Game number 1 starts right now.
Let's get into it. It's live. The players are ready. And half of them already off of the Battle Bus. From north to south we go. Who will be victorious? Of course, we are constantly talking about off-spawn battles, wherever region you're watching, whatever level of Fortnite you play, that's always going to be a massive factor. Can you win off-spawn? In the case of Queasy here on our screen, they have an interesting split job where they're not often contested, and it doesn't seem like it'll be that way today either, but at Lonely Labs, Noah Riley and Vidil have a fight to handle.
Yeah, this is one of those combinations. I'm talking about an FNCS champion in Vidil mixed with Noah Riley, a man who's tasted that spot, or at least so close to it many times before, right out of the gates. And the interesting thing, what we saw yesterday, they were kind of splitting the POI. This time around, on the EU side of things, they're not really wanting to split it too much. They're going to the same side of the map and trying to take the loot because they know behind Lonely Labs, there's a couple of extra buildings, a couple of extra chests, so they're trying to make sure they're at tip-top shape before they even end up in exchange, just like this one. Decepto's trying to do what he can. Clement goes down. Steno's down as well. This is going to end up into a 1v1 situation, but he has a chance right here to try to get the res.
Deceptos and Clement are no strangers to fighting off spawn. They've done it many times in many different chapters, but this time, on the back foot, what can they do? Lucia not going to give them an inch to breathe. Clement finally taken out completely, and it looks like Deceptos will follow. The door edit comes out, and that's not the door you want to be opening. Lucia will win in that fight, but again, right back into the action, and it seems like it's all over here for Lusha and the Freezy. Teeny and Misha will take them down.
That calculated aggression we were talking about, prefacing right before this. You know they're going to get aggressive, especially with the way the meta plays here in Fortnite. It's about picking and choosing, being that smart player through and through.
And look, I mentioned it at the start, right, where a lot of players are contesting each other at places that aren't actually, right, these POIs.
Yep.
And so we're going to see a lot more of those, you know, really 50-50 heavy fights where you are just trying to outdrop somebody, right? Sometimes in bigger POIs, you know, both teams land on at the same POI. You land one side, they land the other. You get time to loot up, then you fight. In a lot of these fights, it's literally just going to be whoever has the better drop map, whoever's been practicing more, and whoever gets lucky with the loot they pick up are going to be the ones to be victorious. When it comes to this team here on our screen, Jacob, a lot of hype coming into the competition, but hype they can certainly live up to.
And one of the more contested spots right now over towards Faulty splits. Immediately jumping in with a team going down. Trexer is going to go ahead and save the day. Quick revive, getting right back up. But you got to know it's not going to be Clear Waters anytime soon. As I do believe Vidil and Noah Riley has just been taken out over towards Lonely Labs. They're going to go out and rethink their strategy after that first game. What are we going to do different? What things need to change as Mr. Savage and iDrop over towards Anvil Square. And that's the thing right now, Mr. Savage and iDrop, they're just getting better and better every single time I get the chance to watch them.
Yeah, a team that has a lot of fans, of course. Anybody playing with Mr. Savage is going to be up there in terms of fan favorites. And it'll be interesting to see whether or not they can do what many people would love to see them do and push on and make themselves a major contender in the FNCS final. Of course, you got to get there first, and that all starts here today. But regardless of where you place today, Jacob, you will be picking up series points, right? And so that's going to be a major bonus moving forward, right? As we go here for the next couple of weeks, 3 weeks of qualifiers. It's all about accumulating them series points. What do we have here? We have a replay of this fight over at the Citadel.
Literally just getting into the box. That's teamwork right there. One player weakening the cover, the next one breaking it, pushing through. Seti and Cammy, though, first time being able to see our FNCS Invitational champions here over towards Frenzy Field. You know, I got to give it to Caster Lash, reading his notes. And he's saying this is the first time since Game 11 of the FNCS Invitational that Seti and Cammy are going to be uncontested. And a team that plays as passive as they do, you're giving them all the time in the world to work with. Chapik's trying to sneak up on another player. This is going to be a great opportunity for him to try to get some early game damage.
Yeah, you can see Uguay being very, very cunning about the way he approaches this one. Making sure not to be seen. Of course, Wash player is going to be doing the same as he looks to sort of flank and get a different angle. That's going to be the way you want to approach a lot of fights, right? Look for a pinch. Look to try and cover as many angles as possible. And once he leaves himself open, they're going to take the shots and look to push in. The crack shields will be a trigger for them to start running on in. And it's only a matter of time you've got to think before they pick this one up.
Yeah, you can see his teammate in the minimap trying to use the shockwave hammer, close the distance so he can hand that helping hand on over as Joker's trying to get back on out in the opposite direction. They're reunited here for now, but how much time can they buy to gain some stability here in this one? As Uguay Wash player still putting the tags on from the distance. Shield's going to get dropped. Uguay's going to see that as a green light to go for now, but maybe it was green, quickly turned yellow, slowing down the pace, backing up, knowing not to bite off more than you can chew in this situation. This is only game one. There's 6 games on the day. You have to be consistent.
The window was there. The window was definitely there for them to pick up the elim and make it a 2v1, but they sort of missed it. And so now things are going to slow down a bit, a change of pace, but right back into some fast-paced action for you as Mr. Savage finds himself in a sticky situation, trying to hammer out, but with how low he is, he's going to get knocked as he glides through the sky. And that is not ideal whatsoever for the Norwegian. He falls at the hands of Dan even. And I drop now in a 2v1 with another pair of eyes set on this fight. Seemingly an impossible task, you'd think.
Going over Mr. Savage, trying to bait him to peek. That's going to be a huge trade in shots. Mr. Savage is going to go down, but iDrop putting a good amount of damage out, but now he's convinced that he is a solo. But luckily for him, though, he's down there. He could try to get the reboot card if these guys do back off. There is another team nearby, and that's where they're going to have to make that calculated decision. Do I stay? Do I try to get this another elimination, or do I take what I can get? I got my surge, continue looting up, and play for the rest of the game.
Another switch of gears, right? From chaos and action over to the sunny south for the Frenchmen. Snazy and Andalex, a duo who, on countless occasions throughout their careers, have come ever so close to winning FNCS championships and never quite been able to do it. These guys have been playing with each other for quite a while now as a duo. One of the few duos that we will mention today who has done that, sticking together through thick and thin. Will their loyalty be rewarded, though, is the question this season. Can they get a spot in the Global Championships? You definitely think they'd hope so. I'm sure all of France will be hoping so.
Yep. I know myself. I like to see that storylines. I like to see people achieve things they've never done before. The potential is always there, Levin.
Yeah, and speaking of people achieving things and, you know, changing their stories, tripping here on our screens, obviously was playing with Thomas HD, one of the best players in the world before, and now playing with Scram. So a chip on his shoulder, a lot to prove. Needs to show the world that he is still a top player. Teeny and Misha, though. We saw how well they were doing earlier in the game and things switching hands. Mr. Savage will fall at the hands of Misha. And so now 1v1, Misha versus iDrop. Maybe going to trade the revives. That would be optimal. It doesn't mean that iDrop's going to start. He's going to keep it going, keep the pressure applied. And now maybe a chance for both teams to get their teammates up.
And honestly, it looks like he's been pretty busy at this already. We saw Mr. Savage go down at the beginning of the game, already brought back in, down again, never giving up, always standing tall. And that's going to be the thing. Doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down, it matters how many times you get back up. And iDrop is letting Mr. Savage know it's okay, we still got this. It's the big picture that they're looking at as this fight does look like it's a little bit prolonged, but iDrop and Savage knows when to back off, when to disengage. And I think Misha and his duo are going to do that same thing, go the opposite direction. But with the shockwave hammers and getting there first, it's going to be a little bit better for them.
Yeah, I think it serves to benefit both teams to disengage here.
Yeah.
Of course, both accruing a decent amount of damage on each other, and so that goes a long way in terms of managing Storm Surge. But then not griefing each other's games, right? Making sure that they both are able to stay in this one for a significant period of time. A look here at Hellfire and Refsguard. Refsguard IGLing. He's talked plenty times now about how his goal this season is to establish himself as one of the best IGLs in not just the region, but in all of the world. And he's got a brilliant player by his side in Hellfire, so a team definitely to watch out for. Some potential underdogs, dark horses.
And this is where that Lonely Labs fight went down early on, zone pulling south. You got to imagine most of the teams trying to get there sooner rather than later. But that's why it's becoming a little bit more congested of a spot. And that's where I would like to see somebody think outside of the box. We saw it yesterday on NA East. Grab some sort of a boat. Try to go around everybody to the slower side. But you got to make sure that you have the extra surge in your back pocket in order to make that a viable strategy. Because you don't want to try to make something like that happen. You're down surge, and then when your back's up against the wall, you're forced to use all your heals, all your resources just to make it work.
And over here at Slappy, right, we're going to see plenty of that happening with players doing a bunch in terms of trying to get their surge. Of course, though, we have plenty going on all around the map, and we can't possibly cover it all, Jacob. And so thankfully we have one of our analysts, the wonderful Best Taco, here to fill us in on everything we've missed. Taco, what's going on?
Thanks so much, Levin. For starters, Thomas, he knows that proper surge management couldn't be more important, because then you don't have to worry about getting some proper positioning later on. So he's already taken the opportunity since acquiring max mats to just build on up on height, looted out the entirety of that north anvil over near Icy Islets, and now he's just looking for the free and easy surge tags as they come.
You heard the breakdown, you heard the strategy in which Thomas is going for right out of the gates. And I like that, because it shows that every single one of these top players have different facets to their game plan. They can get aggressive, they can take over at a moment's notice, but they can also play that slow, steady game plan, knowing that Storm Surge is a huge part of the game, as Queasy and Vino are trying to do that boat rotate that I was talking about moments ago. Hopefully for them, they have the surge, because they're getting stuck out in open waters.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I really like to see this boat rotation, because honestly,
wow,
you know, boat rotating was a big thing way back in Chapter 2, and it's almost like teams almost forgot about the benefits of it, and we're seeing this team use it and get great advantage from it, right? I don't think these guys are expecting Queasy and Vino all the way out here in the ocean, and so some free tags there, 570 above, but to see Queasy and Vino boat rotating, it's something that you often will have to see teams who land on the extremities do, right? They obviously land all the way up north of the map, and so when zone pulls to the south like this, one of the best options for them is to just rotate all the way around via that boat.
And I keep just thinking back to that calculated part of the aggression I was talking about, because in order to make something that happen, you saw they were over 400 above the damage threshold. They had to be very, very proactive early on, uncontested, allow them to loot up right out of the gates, not worry about much, just like Vico and Kylie over here. A little bit to worry about over Slappy Shores, a lot to fight for, plenty of metal, so teams are going to try to scavenge it, even if they don't necessarily land here. So they got their work cut out for them, trying to sneak around, trying to get the drop on their opponents. They are in the zone, so they know they don't have to rotate out, so they can easily disengage at a moment's notice, but I don't think either one of these players want to be that one to back off just yet. Not too soon, because then you let the other team know that you might be a little intimidated. You might not want to fight, and some people think that is a weakness.
Yeah, and you never want to show yourself to be weak in a lobby like this one. Of course, Clown and Frey are weak in the sense that they are below Surge, and so they need to hit a shot. A big, shotgun shot would be enough to move them just above, but of course they want to be more than just above. They want to be comfortable, sitting pretty. Vico and Kylie, they need to stay patient. Don't need to overextend, don't need to overpeak, expose themselves. And you see there, Vico, he doesn't want to be making any noise, and so making sure to aim down his sight as he crouches away. That means the sound cues aren't there, and Clown and Frey won't be aware of where exactly he is and where he's moved.
They're going to have to move eventually, as Zone's going to pull off of Slappy Shores. Not too much to worry about, though. It is going to be close by, but still 67 below the damage threshold. They're going to have to be proactive. Storm Surge beginning to tick in. Shield's getting ripped off. Vico playing calm, cool, collected, waiting for the big pot to be popped. Huge shot's going to be fired. Great job by Vico. Surprising Clown, taking him down altogether. He knows that he cannot be the hero. His teammate has to get out of dodge. That's going to be a big elimination for Vico and Kylie to keep their Storm Surge very active. And another 100 tag. Vico back-to-back to take out the full duo.
And you can see the passion in Vico's face as he gets those limbs. It means so much to him. Huge stuff there from Vico. One of the most talented players we have in all of the Fortnite world right now.
Down below Surge, Thomas and Malibuca. Taco broke it down. The huge tower that they were building to try to get the Surge, they eventually had to move off. They probably didn't get the tags that they needed. A little bit of a least contested spot with the zone continuously pulling south. Now their back's up against the wall, having to use a lot of their resources, a lot of their heals, but they know only 15 below. Eventually, they will get ahead. They just need to land one shot here in this scenario, and you already see the Danger Hero Augment working to Malibuca, able to kind of save some of those resources, but they're not finding the shots, Levin.
Yeah, but look, if you are familiar with EU, you will know that if there's anybody you have to bet on to get themselves out of a Surge situation, it would be Thomas HD. So renowned for hitting big shots, some of the best aim I've seen in any game ever, quite frankly. And so hopefully we can start to see them taking shots. Of course, as players start to move towards the zone like we're seeing here, there will be opportunities, vulnerabilities. Nevertheless, the Refs Guard and Hellfire, they do a good job of moving ever so close to zone. Of course, they do have to move in just a bit more, though. They actually want to be safe from the storm.
Impressive Surge management, though. Only one elimination, over 1,000 above the threshold. That Red Eye must have been firing off almost all mid-game, just trying to make it here towards the end game, peeking through, trying to gather that information. And since they're on the edge of zone, they're trying to look at what other players are so late to rotate, and they find a target, immediately putting down the shots. On the other hand, the FNCS Invitational Champions, 400 above the damage threshold, no eliminations. They're just playing their game plan through and through. It's about throne number 5 and on where they begin to pick up a lot of their eliminations.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have been concerned about Seti and Cammy. Of course, they won the Invitational. It was one of the most impressive feats we've seen. The amount of games they were able to win, the style in which they won that actual last game in the tournament was impressive, but they've not started the season so hot. And so I'm sure many people want to see them doing a lot better. Eye drop there falling on our screen. That's going to be the end for him and Mr. Savage in this game. But of course, this is the opportunity, right? The FNCS Major, the beginning of the big tournament of the season. This is your chance to really show what you're about, even if you haven't performed that well leading up to this point. This is where it matters the most. This is where it counts.
And if you have performed well leading up to this tournament, this is a chance for you to really make a statement for the next couple of weeks. Get those series points. Let everybody know which POI is yours. Vortex, Belusi, it's going to be one of those teams, 200 above the damage threshold, 12 points so far, 3 eliminations. Pretty solid game out of them. You look at their resources, about 76 on Belusi, plenty to work with. I would say if they don't pull this next zone, they might need to be looking for a refresh depending on where it actually goes, but that's something we might see later on in the game anyway.
Yeah, Belusi and Vortex, just wait in there. I'm sure they know that Nappy's waiting on the other side of that wall. That left-hand peak wouldn't be favorable, and so maybe he needs to cool down a bit. Reason and Janice trying to build their way into zone, and of course they have some spare loot here. The hammers in hand will go a long way. We know how important they are this season. A necessity for success, it seems.
Getting tagged at from the side. Dropping down just a quick layer, not too much, but something to work with. Queasy, Vino, outside of zone. They got some traveling to do, and it almost makes me wonder, what is that play going to be? Because the slower they take, it almost looks like they're rotating to the more busier side of zone. So they're going to have their work cut out from, just like a couple of these teams here, taking a lot of that damage from Storm. Even if you're 700 above, you still have to be careful for those teams that are below, because they're going to be relentlessly trying to hunt to get the damage.
Yeah, like you said, right? You might be fine, but that doesn't mean the people around you are fine, and that can lead them to make some hasty plays and look to try and get in your box. And when they're in your box, if you don't have the answers, if you can't hit the shots, you will go down, and it looks like that's what's going to be happening here. Okay, not completely over there. But now Frednex has to hit some sort of big shot if he wants to keep his team in the game. Of course, his teammate is down. I don't know if he'll be able to recover that body. It doesn't really seem like it. Maybe. It looks like they are going to give it to him somewhat. No, it's going to be way too hard for him. They're going to just keep on pushing him. They're going to push him the way he pushed them. And they're going to pick him up. Hedra and Lane do a brilliant job there to keep their cool, keep their nerve.
It's almost scary to think that they're barely above the damage threshold after getting both of those eliminations, so their job's not done just yet, just like Janice and Reason, 94 above. That's a place where they can feel some sort of comfort, but not ultimate comfortability, because they know they have to start being proactive, finding the shots, figuring out where most of the zone players in the zone are going to be at, so they know exactly where to rotate.
Yeah, and speaking of rotate, they have a max distance zone to traverse. This is a long rotate for them, but they do have hammers, and so we know they'll be able to use that in order to get to that 5th zone. Lucian Steno, not the complete maximum rotate, but again, a very far rotation for them. Another team though that does have hammers, but I think they also may look for a refresh in this zone. They are lacking in materials. We're still seeing players deal with Surge though, and players who are down on Surge. Hedra being one of them, barely alive right now.
Going back into the zone, that danger here, Augment, that Vivid was talking about, really saving the life again, but no shields to get cracked, 48 HP. That's what he's gonna get stuck at. But you can kind of see that effect, not getting the Storm Surge early. Even after getting those eliminations, he was barely above, dropped down low, forced to go right back in, but now with very little resources to work with all around, he's gonna have to figure out what his next play is going to be. Janice, Reason, not too much commotion going on around them. They must have found themselves a great rotation. Wait until everybody rotates around him before they make their next move, so nobody can really focus on getting those shots. Everybody's focused on trying to get into the zone, and that's a perfect play, perfectly executed by them too.
Yeah, I love that positioning there in terms of just making sure to get into zone and get a bit elevated as well. There is another player on this layer though, and so it looks like Janice wants to sort of push them off. And that's exactly what he looks to do. Isn't going to get the elimination. Scram will be the one to get the credit for it. But nevertheless, Janice is the one that's going to profit from it.
Yeah, we got a lot of our top teams, our fan favorite teams at that still in the game. Queasy, Vino, one of them. Saw Janice and Reason moments ago. And nice usage of the big bush bomb to try and hide their position towards the high ground. A lot of the times you see those players towards the low begin to look up, and then that's where they try to sneak some shots on the players like this, but that's going to make it exponentially harder. As Malibuca goes down, it's all up to Thomas, but that's something you can really be confident on. He's one of the best solo players, one of the best solo clutches, and this is going to be another test to how good he actually is. Great cover, great defensive play, but sooner or later, it is just too much. Vaniac is going to take him down.
A good of a player he is. That was way too difficult of a situation to handle. And you're seeing the problems that occur, even as good as you are, when you are down below on Surge throughout the game. Refs, God, and Hellfire, though, they don't have to worry about that. What they have to worry about is making sure they can start to traverse these moving zones. You're seeing a lot of the big dogs still in this one. Vino, though, will fall, and Queasy is followed as well. How's that gone wrong for that duo? They have to hit the drawing board and come back again for game 2. Trippin, though, he's here with Scram, and they're looking good.
Looking good indeed. Janice and Reason looking all right, getting the damage for Surge. They've been putting with the line almost all end game long. 17 above, getting that first knock, trying to go in for the elimination. That one's going to be cleaned up. The Siphon and the refresh as well. Shockwave Hammer being used, trying to get back into the zone, reunite with Reason. But sometimes when you're in this much commotion, it's very, very hard to get hip to hip.
Yeah, we're seeing down below, though.
Great shots.
The low ground battles, who will be able to claim it? Who will have control? Right now, Lucian and Steno look very comfortable. They're picking up some limbs on some lurking solos, but there are other players on this layer that they're going to have to deal with. Will they be able to capture them head-to-head? Of course, the zone will determine almost who can claim it first. Looks like Trippin and Scram want to try build up, but you'll see that weight is blocked. They need to stay down low for just another moment.
Yeah, just getting their builds. Just Toss forced to use a lot of the refresh. Mahi and Fishy doing the same thing. Almost a great shot on a Mixon. He goes down nonetheless. Vico's down there as well, putting in a lot of damage to everybody, being forced down into that low ground. Fishy's daring to go into that layer, thinks it's a bad idea, tries to go back, but the decision has been made. He goes down. Now it's off to Mahi. He's stuck in a blender right now. He just got made into a smoothie and sent back to the lobby.
And you can see Grows and Fire Hunter up above the rest of the lobby, sitting pretty. They will love the view as well. Everybody below them fighting it out. But the problem that they will have is that their materials are very, very low. And so it's down to a couple little wood builds and a couple mantling sessions. They need to start hitting some big shots. And soon, Lucia and Steno, they couldn't stay on low. They had to move up a bit. But the journey and the goal is still the same. Can they win this game? Cheating and Flixie, they're still looking good in this one as well.
Yeah, he's trying to stay away from all the commotion that is on the low ground. Maybe a team above him. Tayson and Merstash trying to do that same thing. A little bit low on the HP, trying to fight back from above. Running out of resources, though, has to be careful. Merstash trying to reunite. They do have some heals to work with. They can make it out of that tough spot. As Hellfire is finally going to go down to Fire Hunter. Fire Hunter and Grolls, some of the most aggressive teams throughout the 2 days.
And doing exactly what they needed to do, right? Of course, when you're getting low on materials, you're up on height, you've got to start dropping down and taking fights, and that's what they did. But the journey is still going on for Lucia. This time round, though, with just a sliver of HP. Can he stay alive? He's going to have to hit a big shot. This play's all around him. 1 HP now. He's hammering back into the zone. Literally anything would take him out right now, and it does. He finally will fall. Janice and Reason still kicking it, though. They're moving, not working with much. But you can see they're on low. Janice needing to reconnect now with Reason. If these two can stay together as a duo and hold their shotguns out, an opportunity will certainly arise. Jessica, there's a solo. He's moving out throughout all these old builds. Some of these aren't even his. Can he stay alive?
Trying everything in his can. Merstash goes down. It's all up to Tayson. So many solos left in this game. I believe it might be only 1 or 2 full teams. Flixie is going to be another solo. This is a chance for everybody to rise to the top with whatever's left. But a fight going down. Beast Control going over to Flixie. Scram goes back to the lobby. 4 more points through the elimination. Even more with the placement. Trying to get to the front side of his own. Has some resources to work with. He can make the comeback possible.
Flixie is doing what Flixie has done best throughout all of this season. Fire Hunter and Gross, though, they still are the ones sitting above. Even with the limited materials they were working with, they've managed to find a way. Tayson is chilling in the back of the zone, trying to out-heal it while they take out Flixie. And it looks like that inevitability is coming. He's holding on, but he's just got the wood left. And they know that. They know that they can just keep pressuring from above. Tayson, though, with the med miss, he's got another one as well. Barely staying alive there, and he just needs to wait for Flixie to fall in. It looks like that's what's going to happen in just a matter of moments. They can't connect any shots, though. They can't hit him, and Flixie actually takes down Tayson, and so he's got in second place. But will he be able to win against these guys? The hammer play to come back in. He's built up above them, but they need to stay together. They need to look up, and if they can start to take a look at him, it would only be a matter of time, you think, before they take him out. And that's exactly what looks like is about to happen. But he is just scurrying away, getting out of their sights, making it last just that bit longer. And now they're trying to hammer all around, break every single build. And you've got to think now, Fire Hunter and Groves will connect to the shot. They hammer back up, and he will fall back down. Flixie, second place. But it's Fire Hunter and Groves who take game one.
I gotta give Flixie all the credit in the world right there, though. He would not go down. He would not go away. It almost looking like he had a chance to clutch up, but gotta give it to Groves and Fire Hunter. Continuing with that momentum throughout the first 2 days just to get into this point. Consistency is key, and after game one, they showed they have it.
I'm convinced that Flixie just wanted me to cast that for like another 30 minutes. He didn't want it to end. But look, Fire Hunter and Groves showing off how you almost want to play when you're not working with much materials on height, right? They didn't have much, but they held it with confidence. They got aggressive on the teams that were threats to their high ground holds, and they dealt with everybody that was in their path. 6 limbs up to this point, of course, getting the 7th on the game once they pick up Flixie. A very, very good start to the day, and a big grin on the face of Groves as he starts very, very well.
Yeah, and I love it. Like I keep saying, 2 days of practice, getting into that 3rd day. This is a great chance for them to keep that momentum going. So many teams, though, going down a little bit early while others making it farther than we expected in that last game. EU, I'll tell you, it has definitely surprised me.
Yeah, look, it is only the beginning. We still have plenty more games, but let's take a look at where all of our players stack up after this first game. Let's send it back to the analysts.
Game number 1 here in EU, just as chaotic as it was over in NA East. I feel like a lot of these players are still just trying to understand how this is all working out. I did want to do like a little bit of a check-in though, talking about Janice and Reason for just a moment.
Yeah.
We kinda highlighted them at the top of the show. How'd they do in this game 1?
100%. I mean, I'm surprised, honestly, because actually at one point in the game, both Janice and Reason and Andalex and Snazy were both alive, which means that that expected 50-50 that we thought was going to happen right off the spawn didn't actually go down. So we'll have to check in game number 2, what's going on over there. But I mean, Janice and Reason just ran with that opportunity, made it to the end game. Unfortunately, Andalex and them did not. But Jenny, you know, Janice and Reason are doing well off spawn by not fighting. So how do you think it's going to kind of affect the drop spot over there?
Yeah, so Janice and Reason, again, not fighting was able to give them such good placement points, making it to endgame. However, the other team that we're saying there, it was supposed to land there, they did not. So we might see them get a little bit aggressive and try to get Storm Surge extra on Janice and Reason.
Yeah,
we might see that, even though they didn't do it the first game.
Yeah, for sure. Now remember, that's just game 1. Nobody freak out. Everything, we're just still setting the tone, okay? Getting the vibes out. But here's our standings. Grolls and Fire Hunter here in that number 1 spot after just game number 1. Kind of top heavy there, and as far as eliminations go, Ryan, you've got Cheatin' and Flixie there with 7. And then, I mean, Steno at 10 eliminations. My gosh.
I mean, that's just primarily off the back of the great performance from Lucy there, 100%. But I mean, you know, we've got to give a big shout out to Fire Hunter and Grouse right there, taking full advantage of the fact that actually Queasy and V went down early throughout the game. You know, we could see them throughout that end game completely dominating on the high ground. And that's just on the back foot of a little misstep from Queasy.
Yeah, too, like, they are prominently the team that takes height. So that's what we see during endgame. So since that team was not alive, we see them being able to come in and hold that high ground and using the hammer to dominate through the builds and ultimately end with a victory royale.
And you know, I love Jacob, right? He gave big props to Flixie here at the end. In a 2v1 situation, I mean, Fire Hunter and Grouse just could not find that guy, so making sure that he gave himself the best possible chance, but even still getting that second place right there, very, very good.
And just highlighting there for a moment, Fire Hunter utilizing that shockwave hammer. We kind of talk a lot about it front, going from, you know, low ground to height, but he was like, I'm on height. Let me use this to kind of maintain that high ground. That's sick, bro.
Yeah, I mean, 100% taking full advantage of pretty much everything that he can get out of that shockwave hammer. But I mean, somebody who was just kind of running throughout the mid ground and that low ground, like we mentioned before, Lucia, you know, picking up a majority of his team's eliminations, kind of making sure that they squeeze into the third place. As you can see right there, only 32 placement points, but still finding themselves up in the top 3. And I mean, just as a duo right here in the end game, just breaking through all the builds, making sure that they're together.
Oh yeah, and that quickness that they have, just being able to have practiced that over and over again, you see that coming out. They are just putting into practice what they do, and they're doing great at it, and it shows. And that's just amazing to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Even though there was quite a bit of chaos in like even some of these clips and in that end game, there's almost like calm there as well.
Yeah.
Like though there's chaos happening, you can tell a lot of these duos are very comfortable in what's going down.
Yeah, I mean 100%, and that just comes from being able to practice. Maybe they watch some of the NA stuff, but I want to reference Kanata from yesterday. Maybe some of these guys are now going to VOD review in the middle of these games now and kind of figure out what's going on in some of these endgames. But I mean, yeah, that endgame kind of felt a little clean, a little bit less chaotic than I feel like than we saw yesterday.
Oh yeah, definitely. I would say in comparison to NA, EU is so much going on, but it's actually really exciting because your brain just starts picking up on all the little pieces, and it's amazing to see.
I'm curious, like, will they continue to get crazier? Will we see, like, maybe a ramp up? Is this the tone EU's setting? Now, this is just week 1. We got weeks following, and so on and so forth. But I'm kind of curious, where do we go from here?
I think that the main reason that game wasn't as chaotic because there wasn't as much fighting going on for higher ground, right? I mean, I think maybe a lot of people could just kind of assume that high ground was set and so on, when really they weren't. Like a couple of shockwave hammers up and could have created a lot more chaos in the lobby. But since everybody was kind of letting that higher ground kind of just stay smoothed out, then the rest of the lobby was kind of just forced into this like calmness, and nobody was really just bouncing around.
Yeah, and it was interesting because you pointed out too, like a majority of the time when the hammer is being used, it's being used to go down instead. To go up instead of down. So it's like they're trying different things out with this hammer, and it's going great.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very curious to see how Levin and, of course, Jacob PR's thoughts on the subjects as well. We keep the ball rolling because game number 2 is underway. Let's get into it.
If game number 1 wasn't an indication at all what you're going to see, strap in those seatbelts because this is a roller coaster. This is going to be 6 of the greatest games that we've seen in quite a long time. A couple months at that since the Invitational.
Yeah, I think a couple surprises in that first game. I think some of the top teams you wanted to see go all the way, make it to a distance, didn't quite have that kind of performance. But we did see, really great stuff from Grows and Firehunter. Big credit to them, holding that height, not necessarily the team that you would have thought would come out and dominate height in game 1. But if they can continue to do that, then hey, we'll be talking about them all season. And let's see if they can do it again. We have the battle bus ready. The players are ready to drop. Who will it be to win off spawn once again here in game 2?
Yeah, we've seen some of our superstar style players go down relatively early of what we expected in that last game. Let's see if they can kind of make up for it. We got a west to east bus pass, a little bit on the southern portion of the map. And this is going to cause for some early game fights, and Lusher's going to be able to get that first knock onto one, but it's just not enough. Teeny there to save the day, gets both of those eliminations, but you have to be careful. This is right out of the gate 11. You don't spawn with shields. As Janice goes down as well.
What's going on
Snazy and Andalex.
Yeah, we talked about how Andalex and Snazy, they're no strangers to fighting here off spawn. They've won countless times already this season in the Elite Cups, and now doing it again here today.
It's a rematch. This is literally a 1v2 rematch of what we saw last game. Ushi was able to take it last time, but this time he's not having that same feeling of confidence. Both of these players are up. Clement and Decepto is trying to close onto the gap. They spot that Thunder in there. Let's you to try to go in, sneak that one away. I don't even know if he tried to get the grab just in time. He might have something to work with, but they get in the box anyway. Shot's gonna fire off, and it's not going to be a repeat of last game. They both go down, sent back to the lobby, but let's see a replay of how that one started. A full 50-50 right out of the gate. Great usage of the slide to just whiz past him and steal away the loot. That is big.
That's exactly what you want to see from teams, right? If you do go down or spawn, when you come back the next game, can you make up for it? Can you be locked and loaded, ready to go? That's exactly what we've seen from the 2 French players there. Clement hitting some big shots. A brilliant start to this game and a chance now for them to actually show us what they can do now that they've not gone down in the first couple minutes.
Not just yet. Tripper and Scram, though, trying to make up for lost time. A couple of resources to work with, but not much if this ends up in a prolonged fight. So they want to end it quick. They want to end it easy. Marco and Tricked on the other side of that one. Not building, trying to hide their position. I don't think either of these teams have a ton to work with. A nice shot by Tripper to drop him down the shield. Back-to-back 170. Tripper him and Scram really rising to the occasion right out of the gates. This early surge is huge for some of these teams, so that way they can actually focus on the rotations.
Yeah, and that was a big one as well. Marco and QB are two players who have been incredibly impressive so far this season. Definitely not an easy team to fight by any means, but Trippin and Scram making quick work of them.
Brutal Bastion has first and second place. So you can already see last game they split it, looking like this game they might follow suit. Coupe, Cade, trying to sneak around over towards Anvil Square. Just two different teams dropping here. iDrop and Savage are going to be the other one. And you can kind of see they're just sneaking around. They're separated as well, so you got to be very, very careful when you finally give up your position to take the shots.
Yeah, we saw in the last game, this fight was just dragged out for so long, right? All of the players sort of bouncing around, doing their thing, and nobody really, you know, just getting in, right? Going all the way. This time, will things sort of conclude a lot faster? It'd probably benefit all parties to do that. But nevertheless, you'll see it's just moments like these where they just sort of get out, reposition, and look to set up the fight again in a different manner. It does look like they're picking up the pace a bit here. Mr. Savage trying to get in. iDrop looking to follow suit. A big shot needed to be hit there. He doesn't connect, and so Cade is going to now try to sneak up on iDrop. And it's going to catch him behind if he's not too careful, just building away.
And they were marked quite some time. Cade was able to capture that point, and that's why iDrop was so close. He was trying to contest it, not wanting to let it go easy. But now that the dust has settled, they already know where they're at. Both teams trying to disengage, get into a better position for now. Whether it continues or not, that's a whole nother story. Coupe looking like he's taking the high ground on Mr. Savage and iDrop. Cade trying to refarm. This is going to be a prolonged fight, like you said, from one game to the next. Neither one of these teams wanting to give it up easy. And I like it. It just goes to show that they're using every single thing that they've practiced up until this point to keep themselves alive.
My favorite player in this lobby, the player who I think is the best Fortnite player on earth, Tundra V, playing this season with Queasy. He's been playing with Queasy almost half a year now. It's been quite a while they've been together. And what an amazing amount they've been able to achieve together. And I'm sure they'll feel like they can do plenty more. And last game, their attempts at high ground didn't go as planned. But nevertheless, we will see them be a constant force in endgames throughout today. Tasting a Mustache, a very similar story, right? Where not the best of first games, not too bad either. I'm sure they would have felt like they could have done more. Of course, they're struggling there in mid and low ground, just trying to stay alive with how chaotic it was. But to be fair to Mustache, he thrives in the chaos. That's where he likes to be.
I'm the type of passive player. I don't thrive in no chaos. I'm a steady and cammy type of guy, but without the winning, of course.
Of course.
But, you know, I do try my best, just like these guys here. Teeny getting very, very active. They already have 3 eliminations. They figured out where they were at on the leaderboard after game number 1, changing up their strategy, taking out Vortex and Blue Sea, claiming that spot. That's their 4th elimination now. As they keep getting more and more aggressive, keep finding these surge tags, they're going to be able to just beeline it to zone without little to worry about other than the other competitors to maneuver around to Scram and Trippin down low towards the low ground. Hellfire and Ref's Guard built the tower towards the sky, so that way they can try to find the shots for Surge. And looking at them right now, they have actually pretty good loot to work with.
Yeah, some Danish on Danish action here. 2 of the better Danish duos battling it out, from afar at least. Scram using that ridge to get out of the way. Of course, it means that Hellfire doesn't have the angle to really see them there. I wonder if you'll see those 2 teams run into each other again. Very familiar with each other, of course, Flixie and Cheatin. I was bigging up Flixie last game for how they've impressed me this season. Not necessarily the biggest of names in the region, but they've put on some pretty impressive performances in Elite Cups so far. And if they can translate that into today's lobbies, which I think there's no reason why they can't, they will be a lock to make it to the final, and potentially even a big threat in the final.
And that's what I like. I like some of these guys that might not be necessarily known for it, not that fan favorite, but putting up those numbers, being a threat in the final. As Thomas and Malibuca trying to put shots onto the distance. I did see Flixie go down a little bit easier than he did towards the end of that last game as the shots continue to fire. And this is a huge switch up that I like to see out of Thomas and Malibuca. Last game, you saw them build that tower. Taco broke it down so they can get the surge, but they lacked on it through and through all the way to the end game. This time around, they're switching up. Instead of a tower, they're trying to get their surge while they're rotating around.
Well, I think the big change which will allow them to facilitate that style a lot better is the fact that the zone's actually in a different place altogether, right? Last game, zone was southeast. It was a bit awkward for them. The zone right now is sort of towards that west-northern area, and so it means all those players in that northeastern hemisphere are going to have to almost rotate past those two. And there's plenty of fights going on in that area, so I'm sure they'll be able to third party as well. Of course, Uguay here and Wash player in the midst of a fight right now. The zone pressuring in.
Mahi and Fishy that go down again. Always seem to find themselves between a rock and a hard place as Uguay and Wash player. Trying to set themselves up for a much better performance this time around. You can kind of see everybody else in the outskirts trying to find their spot towards the zone. Tayson and Mustache as well. Looking good, looking good. Great rotation from Slappy Shores. They're just trying to get into the zone for now. Maybe trying to pick something a little bit more unique once they get there, once the next zone reveals itself, but we have to make it there. Shamoki has to try to stay alive and make it there indeed.
Yeah, and Shamoki and Swizzy are two players that many people will be very interested in seeing how they can do. That's a duo that used to compete in Asia and is now competing here in EU. But to start the day, that's two quick elims, 2 games where they haven't really been able to show us what they can do. They need to start figuring things out here at Citadel. Queasy and V. These are the kind of situations we see them in a lot, Jacob, right? Because of where they land on the map, they do end up just getting in these isolated fights where you're unlikely to see a team coming in third party. Of course, if you look at the bottom right on the map, there is a team to the southeast that is Malibuca and Thomas. And so I'm sure they'll be hoping they don't come in third party. That's definitely not the team you want to get involved when you are fighting.
Yeah, and since the zone pulled north, it pulled west, they got to go ahead and figure out what they're going to do, because as that time ticks, that zone is going to get more and more congested, but you see V already leading the way. Queasy's going to go ahead and slowly but surely follow close behind. Our game #1 winners, Grolls and Fire Hunter. I actually did see them take a ton of damage very, very early on from Flixie and Cheatin', but luckily for them, they have the heals, they have the resources, and the smarts to continue to rotate. Just because you take shots doesn't mean you have to hold yourself in that position.
And they got Hammer, which definitely helps.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. And it allows them to sort of get into advanced positions a lot quicker.
Checking the bush.
Always got to check a bush this season, right?
Yep.
You'll see players sitting in them just like we see here with Cammy and Seti. Of course, we got the augments that have facilitated that playstyle with Bush Warrior. Of course, now we actually have, you know, a throwable item that allows you to place down your own bushes. So an abundance of bush play is something we will see all throughout this major.
I'm actually excited to see some unorthodox, outside-of-the-box thinking when it comes to those bushes. But we see a lot of the Bush Warrior augments that you're talking about to regain the HP, the shield, art skill, T-chips. They've seen that rotation before, and it worked out for them very, very well in terms of a couple of other teams, Vino and Queasy. For them, they're like, hey, we've seen somebody else do it. Let's try it out just a little bit. So that's going to be interesting to see how you even get in that position. But luckily for us indeed, I do know that there's plenty of opportunity for players to kind of VOD review, like Kanata said, on NA East and figure out the strategies game to game, team to team.
Yeah, I don't know if there'll be VOD reviewing mid-game the way he was. I'm sure there might be some adjustments we see throughout these games. You can see here a fight taking place in the storm. Oh my goodness. Polly getting absolutely shredded. Wixes is actually down completely. He gets knocked in. It seems like it's going to be a quick conclusion to this one. Yes, it will be. Unfortunate for that duo. They did not see it coming at all. Wiped out incredibly fast.
And that's the thing, man. When you're down on Surge, you don't have the time to prolong yourself in a lot of these fights. 59 below the damage threshold. Paco Marine trying to do what they can. They know timing is not on their side. That piece control is going to go over, but he still takes some tag from the backside, trying to get out. Danger Hero playing a big part in a lot of these players' games this weekend. not only lets you regenerate that health, it gives you a little bit of speed boost to move around. Trexer is doing what he can, but you cannot get too separated in these close range fights because that's all you need is 1 second, one shot to really make the difference.
Yeah, and of course, time ticking. They do have chug splashes, which will be some fast action heals. Marine, though, really trying to force the issue now. We know how dangerous he can be, but there's a player right in your face. You have to take Asa out right there, and that's what he'll do. A big, big shot being connected. And they look like they could conclude this fight rather quickly if they could just get that wall and connect with a shot. Yes, that's exactly what they will do. Nice work there from Paco and Marine.
And while all that action went down, I saw Andalix get dropped in the elimination feed.
Flixie's
plenty of our
down.
top teams. Flixie's back?
He's down.
Okay. Storm Surge is there as well. This is going to be one of those positions. You at least have a shield. Ooh, trying to trade off the shots, but not landing what you need to. A couple of other teams coming in. Hopefully that is able to kind of distract and allow you to kind of use that as a way to get in. But Firehunter and Grolls know that they're so weak. They see the effects of the shield keg going off, so they know sooner or later that team's gonna have to peek to try to get in the zone, and that is the moment they're going to strike. And you see Merstash and Tayson being victims of Storm Surge as well. They're gonna have to think outside of the box to try to get the 65 shots.
Look, this is not a team you want to see struggling down the
not
surge.
at all.
You'd expect them to have this sorted out. And some extra context here, this is something they have struggled with in the Elite Cups, right? Of course, we've had the Elite Cups leading up so far this season. They have struggled with Surge in those, and they've struggled with them so far today. Funnily enough, some of their best performances in the Elite Cups came when they were contested off spawn, right? Which tells you everything you need to know. When they can fight off spawn, get that free damage early, it allows them to play the game in a much simpler manner. But when they don't have that luxury of fighting a team directly off spawn and winning, they end up in situations like this mid-game, down in the dirt. Hopefully they have that Jelly Angler and so can get their shields back up as Mustache will look to fish. But not the best of starts in this game for Tayson and Mustache. For Fury, not an ideal situation to be in here. Never want to be in a situation where you're running alongside a team in the storm, down below on Surge. That is the most chaotic of situations you can really be in at this stage in the game.
I was thinking right there, Kylie and Biko hiding in the bush, seeing the team down on Surge, taking some shots in the distance, probably smiling ear to ear, knowing this is just an opportunity to be the janitors of the bunch, clean it up easy, sneaking around, taking that position above, and nice shot as the player trying to escape. But Biko charged 2 into the box, shot after shot. He makes magic happen again. A walking double elimination machine.
There's a reason why people say Vico is one of the best mechanical players, not just in EU, but in the world. He is unreal in those types of situations. And again, saving his team here.
I've seen shades of this at the FNCS Invitational. He can do it on an international stage. Of course, he can do it in region as well. Trying to find that perfect chemistry along with Kylie. The way they're playing, it's only a matter of time before they take that perfect form. Queasy trying to use what he can of the Bush Warrior Augment, try to regenerate the shields, the HP. And there goes another bush for him and V to really utilize here in this situation. On the side of the zone as well, so they have plenty of time to work with as the next one is going to pull. Tayson losing Merstache throughout all this chaos, still below the Storm Surge threshold. So he knows, while all this is going down, my job is still not done just yet. I still need to peek, I still need to choose, figure out what shots I'm going to take, all while being pressured by Storm Surge itself.
Yeah, this is not where you want Tayson to be. Of course, Tayson is one of the best solo players ever, but you still would love him to have Mustache with him. But we saw the struggles they had with Surge. He has no metal. The materials aren't looking great. Doesn't have any shields in the reserve. If Tayson was able to make something of this game, it would quite literally be a miracle. Some Tayson magic.
I'm feeling some Tayson magic. I feel like something's going to happen. He might be able to make a play, but Frey and Clown are not going to wait for that play. They're trying to make it on their own. Spotting for information. They, too, know that they need a refresh sooner than later. You see Frey splitting the mats.
Yeah, desperately needing a refresh.
They have the opportunity, though. There's about like 4 teams directly next to them, 4 more above towards the north, 2 more directly south, and then the rest of the lobby west in the zone. So there's going to be a good amount of opportunity for players there. But picking your choosing your battle not to get lobby focus is going to be the key. As we've seen Flixie go down early. Cheaton's left by himself. two strong teams nearby. Malibuca and Thomas trying to get into the box, take a 2v1 while they can. That's Vico that's by himself, getting pressured, dropping layer by layer, getting out of there on dodge. Once again, he's just making all the smart plays at the right time, but Thomas not wanting to let him escape, not wanting to let it go easy. Finally gets cleaned up by Malibuca. All the loot is theirs. And that's a great refresh for them. Look at his mats.
Yeah, of course. And big shots being connected there, or needing to be connected there. But another game, Jacob, where they are down on Surge and Thomas not connecting. That's a rare occurrence, right? You expect to see him hit nothing but headshots typically in these types of situations. These guys need to sort things out and fast. They're going to have to commit a lot of their mats to actually getting and building into zone. There are a lot of eyes on them. And on top of that, they're going to be taking big chunks of damage. This is not what you want to see. Malibuca actually goes down. And Thomas has to stay in the zone. What is going on with this duo today? All of their brilliant form leading up to this competition. And right now, throwing up duds. Absolutely nothing connecting, nothing working. And that's the end.
Not only is it not what you're wanting to see, I don't think it's what anybody really expected to see with how they've been performing lately. But almost that trend does continue, because when you perform well in the Elite Cups right before FNCS, that isn't a direct indicator of how you're going to perform. This is a whole different stage, a whole different set of nerves. And even though these guys are the best of the best in their region, it's not going to be a cakewalk, and you can't pretend it's going to be.
And the rest of this game is certainly not a cakewalk for anybody in it. Even if you are currently in the zone that's pulled towards the south, towards that Citadel area. Still plenty going on. Arthur up here, though, sitting in one of the prime positions in the lobby. Almost sort of the gatekeepers to the zone. Fortunately, there are a bunch of builds that players are able to sort of scurry their way through, and so it restricts their vision just a bit. Hellfire went absolutely ballistic down there, picking up a bunch of the limbs. So we know that team's looking good.
Depending on where these zones pull, this actually could get just as scary as yesterday. I'm talking little roller coasters of emotions going up and down the Citadel, the surrounding waters, the hills. So many different plateaus. Got to make sure you have the resources, or at least the shockwave hammer, to at least deal with this madness that players are soon going to face. 2 above the damage threshold. Tayson looking for something. Scrapes some HP off, but it's still not enough. Falls 9 below the damage threshold, and he's seeing that as a green light to go while everybody else is distracted with taking those shots.
Tayson just making his way on in. And if you can just stay alive in this game, it will be beneficial. The extra placement points will go a long way, but the caster curse strikes through. Tayson falls imminently. And that's the end of that run. Cheating, he might face the same fate in a very similar predicament, right? A solo high up in the standings without their teammate and without much to work with by way of shields, materials, and the works.
Oof. Not only does it go down and across waters, it goes back up mountains. But I'm hoping somebody here can move out of their way so they can go ahead and try to find that advantageous position as Art Skill. D-Chips finding a little bit of resources in that crevice, quickly healing back up, getting ready for what that next move is going to be. For all those players that are front side of zone, you can stagger themselves as long as possible using the Shockwave. Rose and Fire Hunter taking control of their own destiny first. And that is what you call consistency. Winning game number 1, setting themselves up for prime position to hopefully take control of this second game.
Yeah, you can see Queasy and V. We saw things didn't quite pan out the way they wanted to last time round. This time round, they're looking to go all in for a moment there. They saw the window, they saw the opportunity, but having the discipline and the patience to leave it once it didn't materialize. Can they stick together? Can they avoid players like this? T-Chips jumping into their box. That is going to be a lovely refresh for them. A gift, maybe you could say. Getting dropped down, though. But this is looking much better for that team.
Ram just quickly gliding right in. 41 below the damage threshold. If you're that below the damage threshold in your front side of zone, it's not as worrisome as it may seem. You can quickly pop back, take a quick shot, look in the sky for players shockwaving up and around, but they're continuously falling further and further below the damage threshold. 102, 116. They're focusing on the rotation now, but sooner or later they're going to have to look back and try to get the shots. But somebody that doesn't have to look back, they can look down. Fire Hunter and Grolls, they have the high ground, 7th moving zone. First Shockwave Hammer going down. Everything comes crashing below, but he catches himself. Great shots on the Hellfire as well. Tripper and loose and scram, so he's left as a solo at 88 points. How many can he pick up? That is going to be something we took after.
He's going to have to do his best but his best is what he always gives. V and Queasy, they're not on height. There's another duo that holds that crown right now, but nevertheless, they still remain in this game, and regardless of what layer they're on, they're always going to be a threat. Fire Hunter, all the way up there, going to look to hammer his way on to the front of the zone and try to reclaim some sort of position there with his teammate. But you can see so many of our top dogs still in this one, still alive and kicking. For Cammy and Seti, can they start to do what they do in the mid layers? Vino though, V, Queasy, building up. They've taken high ground away from Fire Hunter and Grols. They might just be able to hold on to it. They need to make sure they don't get chopped out, but that's exactly what will happen. We've seen it so many times already today. But V and Queasy, they hold on.
Yeah, the Kings of High Ground know better than just to let their backside go for free, but Queasy gets knocked down momentarily. Grols loses Fire Hunter, winning game number 1. Now he's back up against the wall with SS Solo trying to get as many points as possible. Trippin's doing that same thing. Gets a big elimination onto Wafa. Shockwave Hammer, that's going to be a big tool for his success, but he doesn't make it out of the box. Venya catches him slipping. Grols trying to play defensively against the wall, spots so many players on the outside, quickly tries to go through, pops the shot, but doesn't land it. 54 HP. Shockwave Hammer trying to get out of dodge. No resources, no mass, but now he puts himself backside the zone, sacrificing the 10 HP just to get some material to work with.
Yeah, trying to hammer as a precautionary measure. But this is not where he wants to be. No matter what he does now, it looks like the end is nigh, and it does come there. Blackcher and Mixon, they're still in this one. Quiet so far today, but getting loud here in this endgame. Already 4 limbs to their name. Can they add any more to the tally? It's going to be very difficult with how much HP they're taking. Danger Hero allow him to get back up just a tad bit, but no, eventually he will fall. So much chaos going down below here. Blackcher is still moving. Bad Sniper, the one to take out his teammate. And so now he has to try look to do everything he can, but no, V will take him out. That's what he does best. Queasy and V, they're still up here, but they're not working with much. Down low on mats, but the player count is dwindling as well. Only a matter of moments before they might be able to pick this one up. Diox, they're waiting for his moment, and he'll take it when it comes. A big shot connecting.
Getting into that top 4 is huge in terms of placement. But there's one team that remains as a full duo as Deoxy's trying to go ahead and go past everybody. Shockwave Hammer trying to gain some ground. Bad Sniper goes down. V's trying to get the last laugh. Cleans up a big elimination. Back to back. Queasy and V stand tall. Winning game number 2.
He manages to surpass expectations every single time. How does he manage to do it? We big him up as the best player, right? The player you don't want to mess with, and he keeps showing us why. V and Queasy pick up the game after fumbling things in game 1. Look at the ruthless aggression from V. Just, oh my goodness, I'm seeing these shots taken.
He's just a machine, and it all started moments before this even happened. Before the moving zones, they stole away that high ground by force. V going to the high ground and taking it, forcing Grols and Fire Hunter down, eliminating Fire Hunter on the way, and from there, they held it through and through. And there was a little moment where Queasy got dropped down, but V said, nothing to worry about, brother. I got this.
And what a beautiful feeling that must be, knowing that you have such a player on your team, by your side, and no matter what happens in a game, he is always going to come through. A big game for Queasy and V, but a lot in terms of everybody else and how that impacts the standings. The best people to fill us up with what's going on there are the analysts, who will send it back to Zeke and everyone else.
That is what I'm talking about. That is the Queasy and the V we are used to seeing, baby. That's them.
Oh, yeah.
But my question has to be,
okay,
what changed here? Because last game we saw a little bit of a different change, like something went wrong. What went right?
So, you know, with this team, they are dominant for height. That's just a fact. So them being able to set themselves up in a position, having the Storm Surge, being safe, being able to hold that high ground, even though we saw, you know, Fire Hunter, them trying to be on the high ground, them trying to take it, it just wasn't able to happen because Queasy and Vino, like I said, are the dominant high ground champions. And we're solid there. Like, if they're able to get height, it's game over. Like, that's their game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want to know something, Zeke? You asked us, what changed from game number 1, game number 2? I'll tell you right now, 22 spots on the leaderboard for Queasy and V right there after this great performance. And I love the emphasis that Jacob and Levin were actually putting on just how good V is. But the one big thing that changed from game number 1 to game number 2 was actually that Queasy and V waited until the moving zones to actually go for that high ground because they got that refresh during them, and then they went for high ground. But, shout out to Fire Hunter and Grouse for actually playing that high ground again, because that shows to me that they're willing to actually contest these guys.
I love that they're so good at setting the tempo of the game. We see this all the time. Like, everything seems, you know, everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm playing the game, right? I'm doing what I'm doing. They're like, yeah, okay, go over there. And everyone's like, yeah, I want to go over here, right? Like, that's what we're seeing. The moment that they take over the game, they take over the game. And because of that, we'll see them jump after just 2 games into that second place. I've also in here, right? 8th place, jumping up to 17. But another duo, Tripper and Scram, I mean, long-time veterans of the competitive scene. They should have huge today.
Yeah, I mean, they're just finding eliminations throughout these matches right now, right? It only shows 8, but it feels like all the eliminations they were getting just felt so impactful. And yeah, they should be a part of a highlight package. And love this play right here from Scram, right? Just barely actually getting out of the way of the zone right there. Unfortunately, it does go down, but Tripper left to do it as a solo, which is why we love this performance right here, right? Look at this, just clean shots. It doesn't even feel like he's phased at all by the nerves.
Yeah, and him being able to get all those eliminations, being a solo, keeping that surge safe for him, was able to put him in a place that he could have more placement points and just set him up for success.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that, like, from NA coming yesterday, we saw a lot more, like, individual efforts, right? A lot more people were left to fight solo. That's not really the case here in EU. Like, once one goes down, the other follows. Like, is EU going to look to make that change, or is it just kind of like one goes down, we're both out?
You know, I feel like the meta for a lot of these solo clutches that were happening on NA was actually the shockwave hammers, right? And, you know, in order to use the shockwave hammers, you have to have charges. I feel like EU, these end games, they look a lot harder to rotate. So maybe they're expending those shockwave charges for some of those early rotates. They don't actually have any charges left to make those types of solo plays. But then again, you know, these teams, the duos that actually are alive in these end games are just so good at finding eliminations on anybody that's a solo, which is also probably why it's just so hard to find any of those clutch moments.
Yeah, and again, comparison like to NA with EU, there are the end game we just talked about prior, it's so much going on. So with that being said, you have teams that are looking for those solos specifically, and they just find them, take them out. And like you said, yeah, without having that hammer rotate, it's very hard to get out of bad situations.
You love to see it. Thank you for the breakdown there. Really quickly, let's touch on Janice versus Analex. We talked about them at the very beginning, right? And this time, the Ospawn went a little different.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. We saw in game number 1 that actually both of these duos made it all spawn alive, so they weren't going for this 50-50, but now the big switch up comes in. This is actually what we were expecting to see every single game today, and as you can see here, just the better drop kind of beats out Reason right there, and then just an easy cleanup for Analex and Sneezy after this. So they didn't like what happened game number 1. Maybe Storm Surge was a little rough around the edges for them, so they actually went for that 50-50, but unfortunately still went down throughout that mid game.
Yeah, and now Janice and Reason are gonna have to stay on their toes, knowing that they're gonna be aggressive and want to take them out. If they've done it before, they're gonna have confidence, think they can do it again. But we will have to see if Janice and Reason will be like, hey, no, that's my blue house. You're not coming here.
Yeah, and that's funny too, because you called that out, Jenny. You were the one that was like, hey, they will be fighting over blue house. And that was the adjustment, right? Like, okay, let's just actually fight for the house.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? What are we doing any different, right? Like, you love to see that. Okay, what are we hoping to see? Game 3, anything different?
You know, I feel like there's a couple teams out there, you know, shout out to Thomas and Malibuca. They've been dominating throughout the season, but first 2 games, Storm Surge trouble for them, so definitely got to iron out some of their strategies around that as well. And then Slappy, both those teams are also having Storm Surge, so what do we think that maybe those teams could do to switch it up?
I was going to say the same thing. So we have Taysom or Stash, you know, landing Slappy, like we said in our breakdown earlier. They also were having a lot of time struggling with that Storm Surge, not being able to get it. So I feel that they're going to take that initiative and be really aggressive, since they are really good at holding on that side, and they're on the north side, and it is the more dominant side of Slappy. So I feel like they will be a little bit more aggressive so that they can set themselves up and be perfect going into endgame with Storm Surge taken care of.
That's right. The breakdown next level. And guess what? We have our casters who are standing by as well. Can't wait to hear their thoughts on the subject. So game number 3, it's game time.
An excellent point made there by our analysts, right? It's game number 3. We got to start seeing players make some changes, right? Jenny mentioned it, right? If you're tasting them as such, do you now start to push the guys who are landing south of Slappy just because you need to deal some damage for Surge, or you can't just afford to allow yourself to waste away for the next couple of games?
Yeah, you can say the same thing about Thomas and Malibuca. There's been a trend here. A lot of our top teams, a lot of our superstars lacking on the huge fundamental of Storm Surge. And that's a big theme, because ever since those changes happened months ago, a lot of teams revamp their game plan, revamp their strategy to suit the Storm Surge. I don't know what happened. I don't know if they went to sleep and forgot, but something's got to change here.
And look, as good as they have been, V literally is, you know, on social media going, I'm playing this game with a disadvantage. I've got no hammer, I've got no zones, you know, we've not got the best of loot, and they're still performing at a high level. So imagine now, if things do start to go their way in these next couple games, it is going to be an absolute masterclass from one of the best teams we've seen. Will it be that way? We will find out in just a moment.
Luckily for us, that moment doesn't have to wait too long. Game number 3 is upon us. On the mid-bus path, west to east, I'm liking it, giving everybody that chance to have their little bit of a hot drop. Give them a couple extra seconds to work with. A couple of fights that we've seen almost all day long, and already we see a couple of them going right out of the gates. Teeny and Misha versus Lucia and Frizzy. It does look like this time around, they said, nah, not again. We've had a couple of games not go our way because of this off-spawn battle, and you already see a huge change up before our eyes.
And we're seeing a 50-50 drop here between QB and Marco, Trippin and Scram. Are we going to see a repeat of last game? Will Scram and Trippin come out on top? It doesn't look like they're that way. Trippin goes down early. Marco doing what he wasn't able to do last time, and maybe even going to pick up the double. He will. A brace for Marco to start the game.
I know that pain. You go in, expect, anything. You get a mini, not anything to work with. Steno and Lucy, Clement and Deceptos. Another huge adaptation coming right out of the gates. And I like it because you can't expect to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. That would be called insanity. And I don't think anybody here is too insane unless you're talking about their skills when it comes to Fortnite as Fire Hunter and Grolls. They do have at least one team extra being contested this time around. Somebody switched up their drop spot, as they should. After 2 games, you have to make the proper adjustments.
You do have to switch something up, right? You can't afford to just keep doing the same thing like you said. That would be insane. For Shamoki and Swizzy, though, they'll be hoping they can finally show off what the Asian region can do. They've been impressive in some of the Elite Cup competitions, but so far today, 2 games that weren't the most impressive. And Skyzoo and Double have been definitely making it a lot more difficult for them, making them have to work for their place in this lobby.
Like this one, eye drop. Looks like he's by himself, probably losing Mr. Savage early on. Trying to go ahead and take that piece of control, maybe put a shot down from the high ground, gonna get the floor, but that's where it ends. Trying to drop into the box. Looks like he's possibly going for Mr. Savage card, immediately using those impulses to get out. Gotta imagine that's gonna be the scenario, but I don't know if they wanna let this free 4 points, this free elimination go easy, and I use that for free loosely because we know how dangerous eye drop can be. Wow.
Dear me, that's what the people do.
Right out of the gates, you don't even need a Thunder, you don't need a Maven sometimes. That new pistol is basically ready. A tactical pistol, semi-automatic, you can kind of poke people from a distance, or you can probably use it as one of those close range and just stuff them.
See here, Swizzy, he talks about whether or not they can start to show us what they can do. A brilliant shot there. And now he has to go help his teammate Shamoki. He's low. That's exactly what we'll do. Taking the brunt of the responsibility there. Lovely stuff from Swizzy. And so now we'll see whether they can match the performances from the Elite Cup. Now that they will get a chance to play out a full game. Shamoki and Swizzy making that switch over this season to EU.
Mappy and Deoxy. Hot on the heels of another team. Towley and his duo. They're just wanting to get that damage, and the damage they will get. You see the shield get ripped off in the blink of an eye. And this is their moment. They're on the outskirts. If you know every single team that is landing near you, you know how they like to play, you know a play like this and the probability of the success coming from it.
Yeah, and Mappy and Diox will want to be aggressive onto them. Being able to take out that team will be a large part of their Surge strategy. This is huge though here, right? We've seen Malibuka and Thomas really struggle with Surge. Oh my gosh, they're playing catch. They're playing catch with the knocked body there. That is what you call taunting on the highest of levels.
They're just trying to get their spirits high after those last 2 games.
Major disrespect, though. Major disrespect.
There's V Queasy protecting what's theirs. We know they're uncontested, but a couple teams landing nearby trying to use that as a rotational path. I don't suggest it. These guys will snap at anybody at a moment's notice. Lucy and Steno right out of the gates from one fight to the next, a whole different opponent. but could be the same result of an altercation very, very early on in the game. They're going to hold on to that low ground. Deoxy and Mappy are going to hold on to their height position. Another player in the distance putting shots on a Mappy. Deoxy trying to close the distance, and that's exactly what you have to do. If your teammate takes too many shots, gets his shields dropped, you have to get into his box and try to hold the covers for him. But the shots continue from the distance. It's a team far out in the ocean. Something you wouldn't have expected at this point. Deoxy, Mappy not wanting to let it go easy. The pressure is just there, and only concern for me is the amount of medium ammo. He has 13 left. I don't even know if that's in the chamber or not, but that's not a lot nonetheless. It's a deal. Noah Riley. I expected bigger performances coming out of them. This one of those duos I was talking about, Vidil, FNC as champion, Noah Riley, one of the superstars of the region, but yet to hoist that axe of champions at the end of the day. This could be their season along with many others.
Well, look, Vidil has obviously lifted it. Noah Riley still yet to. He's come very close in the past. I think the big thing here with this team is that they've been hot and cold with some of their performances. Started off this chapter very impressively with some decent performances, but since then sort of cooled off. And they're the type of team historically that's always going to have one of them crazy match histories where they come 38th one game, then get a 12 elimination game, right? And then, you know, maybe 22nd the next game, and then like a third place game, right? It's always going to be on and off for them, so we'll still wait for the bigger performances to come.
Wow, great shots by Cheatin, but takes the tags back. Gonna use that shield keg, get his shields up, possibly look to trade more shots, just like Refsguard and Hellfire, but minus the shield keg, so they have to be very, very careful of incoming fire. But if you look at their positions, separated, and a lot of ground between the two because they just want to cover more ground. But Malabuka does go down to user in the feed. The struggles continue for them and Thomas HD. And it's only a matter of time here as Hellfire and Refsguard, they're just collecting the surge.
Yeah, and that right there for Malabuka is karma, right? We saw how they were taunting, we saw how they were boasting, and now in a situation where Thomas has to try clutch up. If you can keep him in the game, that would be huge, but if not, that would be a disappointing game. Number 3, really connected with the shot. Both players just sort of dancing around these builds.
I like Thomas just following him, right above him, hunting him, trying not to let his position escape. As users trying to build more real estate. 2 boxes wide, Thomas still hot on the heels. And this is where Thomas has to slowly but surely start to begin to take away these pieces, take away all of his exit strategies, and by piece, he's doing just that. Great peek by users, but Thomas doesn't fall for that one. He's too much of an expert. Quickly gets right out of there. That was almost a bad situation as the pieces started to go the other way. Thomas, but the relentless pressure from him. He knows exactly what he has to do, and the way he's doing it, he's quickly hitting the walls, backing off, hitting the walls. He's making sure to keep his opponent guessing as well.
Yeah, he's reading user pretty well in this fight. The problem is, though, is that, you know, nobody really taking that risk, that chance to go all the way on in. Thomas is going to always wait for that perfect moment before he strikes, so when he does, it's going to be a hard-hitting blow. You can see user now just getting a bit more aggressive in their approach to this fight. They want to get things over and done with. They want to start to control the pace of it. And Thomas might play that right into his hands. You can see he's almost waiting for him to break that wall and edit his stare so he can hit a shot. No, user going to back away. So again, both players being very cautious in their approach.
The thing about this one is the longer they take, because they're not exactly center of center zone, but they're quite in the middle right now compared to everybody else. So the longer they take, especially with the zone pulling south, other teams are going to begin to cross this path. It's going to get much harder for them to kind of continue on with what they're doing. So they need to close this fight. They need to close it out as quick as possible. Otherwise, it might turn into a nightmare.
Yeah, I think at this stage, whoever comes out on top, the game is going to be a large uphill battle. You'd like to think it would be Thomas coming out on top. The hammer actually perfectly timed to get him out of the box. The user did a great job to sort of just box him in and get him on the right angle. But again, it is just not a winning situation for anyone, really. Just the journey to getting back into this game is going to be so, so rough.
Yeah. Hits him in the toes. Not too much shield, not too much to worry about for Thomas. One splash. Right back on up to tip-top shape. Quickly trying to bounce pad in, and that's going to be a big one. Shockwave hammer being used. And the thing is when do you give up on a fight like this? You've expended so many resources, so many mats, so many materials, heals as well.
Well, look, at this point, it's personal between the two, right? If I'm user,
okay, I can get that.
If I'm user, I'm not letting Thomas get away. You can't just throw my teammate about, play catch with his knocked body and think you're gonna get away with it. I will fight you till this game ends if I have to.
I like that because that makes me feel a little bit more confident. If I have you on my side, if someone's playing monkey in the middle with me, Levin won't let that slide. My confidence has just been boosted. I feel myself growing inches as we speak as Thomas is trying to go up and around. Huge shot gonna be fired. Trying to take advantage, quickly backing off. He knows he doesn't have a ton of builds to continue work with. From over 100 builds to start the fight, down to 4. This has to be one of the longest fights that we have seen in a long time. And that danger of other teams moving in is slowly coming to fruition. You're seeing the third parties in the distance. They haven't taken shots just yet, but you see in a big fight like this, you see it in the distance, it almost piques your curiosity to go in.
I feel like I'm watching a child's cartoon where like the villain and the protagonist, they're just constantly going at each other, right? Like just, it never ends. Back and forth, that pendulum. Finally, somebody wins the fight. Thomas HD cleans it up. That's the entertainment we watch the FNCS for, isn't it?
16 builds for his efforts, and we miss so much. Thank gosh we have Taco to cover up some of what we miss in here from Queasy and V.
Listen, I don't think it was just Thomas that was going on a little bit of a journey there. In fact, we saw V utilizing some of the natural launch pads right north of Bastion in order to do a little bit of scouting activity. And when he realized that he had a prime opportunity to isolate an individual, look for an elim opportunity, pushing them inside of the boat on his lonesome, but he knew he had it clean and secure and did a fantastic job of making sure to clean it up.
Yeah, that's a different level of confidence, right, when it comes with V. Imagine being a solo in one of the most difficult lobbies in all of Fortnite, and you're just like, yeah, I'll just push people as a duo, I don't care. I got what it takes to deal with them.
See, I thought it was the other way around. I think, V noticed his boat getting taken off his land, and he was just like, yo, that's mine. that was mine. I used that in game 1. You can't be taking that. And I do like what Taco was saying, those static launch pads in multiple positions around the map, thinking outside of the box. And that's exactly what you got to do, because these zones are going to go all over the map. You have to know every single position, even if it is your POI.
Fire Hunter and Grows. We saw them in the first couple games and doing a brilliant job in that first one. They tried to play for height again in the second one, and unfortunately they weren't able to hold on the way they could in the first. And looking a bit rough as things go on in this one.
So deep in towards Frenzy Fields. Lucy only having bandages to work with, and only 2 at that. Luckily for him, he does have the Shockwave Hammer. Has to quickly follow suit onto Vortex so they can try to get out. Overstaying in this spot, just asking for bad things to happen. His Ref Scar and Hellfire just outside his zone, 189 above the damage threshold. They're just picking and choosing right now. They're seeing a full bunch of teams on the north side of them, and that one team just being annoying, high ground, trying to get the shots. They're returning fire, at least getting something for their efforts, because now they just moved up 252 above the damage threshold.
And I like what I'm seeing so far for Queasy and V today. We've seen them countless times in these games now, playing the dead side of the zone. Oftentimes, just sort of going around where all the players are going to be. They're dealing with a lot of their surge earlier on in the game, and so it gives them the freedom to do that. This game, not as high up above the threshold as we're used to seeing them in some of these, but they're only ever a couple moments away from being able to be a significant amount above when you've got the firepower of V on your team. Speaking of firepower.
No O'Reilly, the deal. Ton of firepower onto them. Couple top teams right in front of them, though. Got to be careful. Don't want to cross the path. And they actually have an easy rotation directly into the zone. Not too much contest in there. But a team that's going to be gatekeeping, watching everybody trying to find that sweet spot. Oddthor and Joker. And this is where they're just immediately dropping down, passing over the hills, and trying to bring in everything that they can back up. They know the possibility of trading shots going to be there, so they want to make sure that when eventually they do have to rotate, they do it with full shields. You see the splashes on the ground. Big pot there is going to be extra. And just look at the amount of information they're able to gather here.
Yeah, and this with third zone pulling back the way it did towards the north after pulling south a couple times earlier zones. This is going to be one of them games where your ability to box fight for Surge is going to be super important. So many players are going to be congested with each other. For the players who wanted to play dead side like the Queasy and V's of the world, you know, it's going to be a lot harder to get the kind of damage you want to deal. And so you're going to see situations like this, cheating and Flixie, where players are just sort of trapped around a lot of different players and having to fight to deal damage.
7 of the 33 teams in close proximity. One of those players, Grolls, is going to get eliminated, sent back to the lobby, so it's all up to Firehunter in that position. He possibly got taken out. You're thinking your ultimate high ground, over peek through the cone, get eliminated. He doesn't have a ton of heals to work with. Obviously, we're trying to look for scraps left behind. There goes some resources. Not too much brick to work with. There's going to be a couple of teams still down on the low side as Clement and Decepto is trying to go at it. Decepto's going to go down. Marines putting the pressure there. Multiple teams in the distance. Clement getting forced back into the zone. Danger Hero is going to be popped off, but it's not going to be enough. He goes down altogether. And that's going to be Vaniac Marine there as well, trying to get out, take what they can. Mapping Deoxy, they found themselves a good spot. And if you look at straight ahead, when it comes to zone, they don't have too much congestion to get there.
Yeah, this is the chaos I was talking about, man. This is what happens with these kind of zones. With the Diox and Mappy, they're no strangers to chaos. We obviously saw Diox last game playing as a solo in endgame, and he hit a couple big shots, but they want both of them up. Oh, dearie me. Yeah, this is not ideal. Queasy is down and out for the count. Again, they got into close quarters with a team that isn't too bad, if I do say so myself, and unfortunately, Queasy will suffer as a result of it. I'm sure that, again, they'll be feeling hard done by it, not having hammers and whatnot. By the end of the day, V still has a journey to go in this game.
I'm a little scared, a little nervous. No Shockwave Hammer, perfect rotational item for a solo. Don't have to worry about your duo going along with you. You could just bounce back and forth, front side, back side of zone. So you find that spot of comfortability as V's just trying to box up, builds himself some space to work with. As he continues to fire shots, 243 above the damage threshold, but some more meters to go before he's actually inside of the zone and going from bush to bush, using every single bit of cover to his advantage. Just like Fluky and Bad Sniper, using the cover that they have, built themselves edge of zone, not too many players nearby, but 102 above the damage threshold. They're just trying to look as they continue to fall what their next play is going to be. Do I go for shots? Do I wait for the next rotation? The choice is definitely theirs.
Yeah, there's so many players going down right now that it's almost impossible to keep track of all of them. I think I'm seeing Badou and O'Reilly falling all over the place. Yeah, those guys are out. A lot of players struggling to deal with the repercussions of the way the zones is pulled. Firehunter, he doesn't even have Grolls with him this game. And so I'm sure any sort of hype push we see this game from him would be incredibly ambitious.
I'm here for it, though. I'm here for an ambitious game out of Firehunter.
The problem is, though, like you mentioned earlier, right? When you're solo in this meta, you ideally want to have a hammer.
Yeah.
Because even if you're solo, yeah, sure, it's difficult. You don't have your duo partner, but a hammer just allows for flexibility in your playstyle that really allows solos to sort of get away with a lot in these kind of lobbies. When you don't have that hammer and you're playing as a solo, dare I say, you're just doomed at this point.
Yeah, Taco said it yesterday during NAE. It's like a get out of jail free card. And for a lot of these players, being a solo in a duos world, you absolutely need that. And for V, yeah, it's a different type of item. Cowcatcher's able to break through the walls, can't build. So if he's able to surprise a solo, surprise a duo, land the necessary shots, it could be something he's after. And hopefully they have a Shockwave Hammer he can pick up. But on board Janice and Reason. The team, I'm waiting to really come online, take full form, but they're still down on Surge, 91 below, using the chili chug splashes, getting the HP up, but not able to utilize the other effect, the speed boost to come for them because they're still stuck trying to fire off the shots and get the necessary damage. Meanwhile, they still have to travel to zone.
Yeah, they are not in the best of positions right now at all. Gonna just try to ramp his way on up, and it's very similar to what we saw them do in game 1, right? In terms of just getting into 5th zone, ramping up, staying on an elevated layout. And even though they commit some mats to do it, it does sort of give them an extra level of safety and security that they wouldn't have had if they just sort of run their way on in. The question is, can they use this position now and take advantage of that?
Uguay going down. I saw Wash player with a shockwave hammer trying to get to the zone. Fire Hunter. Honestly, it's impressive that he still has the position on the high ground right now. Nobody really looking up, but you can't really maintain this position with only 30 mats to work with and all of it being wood, getting shot down into distance. He's forced down low. Surge now dealing damage, pressuring him, being 9 below the damage threshold. Luckily for him, he at very minimum has the men miss to work with. But as soon as the shield's cracked, the teams nearby, they're going to hear that one. Probably use it as a green light to go. Try to take advantage while the timing is right. As V doesn't have that same worry. He was above the damage threshold, but with the players going down, Storm Surge is going to be deactivated, but just for now.
Yeah, V, he's trying to break his way through a bunch of different builds. Looking to scavenge here in the back of the Storm. And he does have a hammer now, which is huge. We talked about how important that is for solo play in these games. And so wherever he was able to find that, it is definitely a blessing. And it will allow him to just stay in this game a bit longer, and all the extra placement points he can accrue will be huge, Janice. Also as a solo in this one.
Wow. Take down Malibuka as well, and he's back to the lobby. He's got to imagine Thomas went down. So after that prolonged fight, using all the resources, you're seeing what it really cost him at the end of the day. Fire Hunter trying to stagger himself backside his zone, waiting for everybody to push up, using the flopper, finding the shockwave hammer, just like V did moments ago. But he's not using it just yet. He knows he's trying to stagger himself, not give up the audio cue, because he's a solo. He doesn't want to give up that information up to anybody. Finds himself just a little crevice to work with. Zone pulling back. This was a perfect scenario for him.
Yeah, a zone pullback is very, very favorable. Of course, V is going to be looking up at Hattie thinking, what could have been if Queasy was here? Maybe we could have been the ones to hold it. But unfortunately, he has to be a bit more humble in his approach to this game. Needs to be careful. There was a player chasing his trails, and some of these builds aren't quite his. Just be a bit more cautious. Another top player having to play it out as a solo in this one. Mustache now, no stranger to mid-ground chaos. With all these different players around him, needs to get a moment to breathe, a moment of cool, just so he can use his heals to get back up. But the zone is sort of pulling not in his favor. V replaying his box. Will he hit the shots? No. He will go down. That is going to be the end. Art skill, the one to take him out.
Crucial shots missed, but even if he hits the first one, I'm not sure because he got pounced on. I'm not sure if it would have been enough as Fire Hunter still making wonders happen. The 9th wonder of the world, you might as well call him at this point. Just minis to work with, has to try to find some HP, whether it's in the form of a refresh or scavenge items on the ground. Being patient as can be. Does he hear that team slowly but surely coming behind? Mandalik's trying to pop the med kit, but nobody's giving him the time. Pressure coming from all angles. Drop down just a layer while resuming that med kit. He needs to be able to get this one off as Janice has the med miss, 57 HP. He doesn't have the same time as Mandalik's had moments ago.
And look, he doesn't have any builds left, and so a big shot will needed right now, and Mustache, is also a solo, could be that victim. Either way though, Janice does have a hammer, and he does have this med miss, but no, he goes down. Maybe he should have just stayed in the zone and med missed and waited to bided his time. Again, in a lobby that is supposed to be a duo competition, it seems like everybody we switch to is a solo right now. So many of them, any of the remaining duos though, they're going to be licking their lips at the opportunity here in this game. Fury will fall at the hands of Paco. He's able to mantle his way back up. That was a very awkward situation, but he makes the best of it. And here, exactly what we can expect him to do. Use this med bitch just to bide some time. Players are going to start falling. He's going to keep on rising in the leaderboard, and that's exactly what he wants right now.
Into the top 10 situation. Clown lost Frey literally just seconds ago, trying to hold on to the high ground as long as possible, running out of builds on their way there. Drop down to 2, making the smart play, ultimate low ground, so that way nobody looks up and you can't defend yourself as he's bob and weave and get in and out of these covers as Bad Sniper does go down. Lanier trying to shockwave to the front side of zone. You said it yourself. Plenty of solos utilizing the shockwave hammer, creating chaos for everyone around him, trying to outlast and grab those placement points.
Yeah, just searching around. looking at every single different angle out of that box. We're seeing down below, Diox and Mappy, one of the few remaining duos in this game, having their fair share of struggles. JJ Tudo and Glubsheet, two players who have been getting themselves more involved in the FNCS competitions over the past year. Glubsheet yet to make it to a final. A win here in this game would be a big opportunity for him to start to get there. Mappy, though, gonna hammer up. We've seen this play so many times this season. He doesn't have Diox with him anymore, and so he's left with the big responsibility of hitting some shots. Kyoto still on this layer, though, and he has to try clear him out. He knows he's behind that wall, sees him behind the wood, and he needs to connect now. But no, taking big damage himself. He's not gonna be able to do it. He will fall as well. No, it's still gonna be Kyoto. His own laner was the one that falls, and so Mappy still has a chance to take him out.
He has to be patient here. Mappy had 11 splashes to work with. He can get out of here alive, but it's JJ2 and Glubsky in a 1v2 situation. Mappy goes down. Everything going over to Glub. Shockwave Hammer, Joker trying to break him down, cause some chaos, end up in a 1v2, but it's just not enough. JJ and Glub take the game.
Glubsky and JJ2 will take it home. And a big win for a duo who will be trying to make it to the FNCS final. Glubsky's never been on that stage. And what an opportunity it is for him here to compete and get the series points that will make him there. And a very impressive win nonetheless, right? We saw so many of the big dogs struggling in that game, but these two looked strong. They looked mighty, and they hit big shots. Mappy getting wiped out there in the end moments, and then closing things out very calmly, even with the hammer causing a bit of chaos.
Yeah, with about a third of the lobby here, trying to make their first FNCS final. About a time somebody really stepping up to the plate and really knocking out of the park. That's what I love to see. I love to see these up-and-comers, these new players that someone would look at and say, yeah, y'all don't got a chance, and they prove everybody wrong.
Hey, look, work hard and your opportunity will come. A brilliant game 3 from that duo. I can't wait to see where that puts them in the standings, right? That's going to be a huge getting a victory out with a bunch of eliminations is always massive. Zeke, what we got cooking?
I'm not a chef. So I don't know. All right, guys. See you guys later. No, I'm just kidding. Wow. New team steps up to the plate here in EU of week number 1. I mean, EU's already a massive region with a ton of different duos. Some we still are still waiting to kind of like break into the scene. So I'm excited that we finally get some new names. Names I'm not really familiar with. Take a Victory Royale like that.
Yeah, 100%. That's just them taking full advantage of the fact that a lot of these big name duos are currently going down in the middle of the game. I mean, we saw JJ right there towards the end of this game. Like I mentioned, again, just taking full advantage of the fact that we don't have the big name duos that we have seen throughout games 1 and 2. Like, for example, Queasy and Vino down early this game, Firehunter and Grouse, who have made a name for themselves towards these end games, also not alive.
Yeah, like we said, like you just said, they were soloed and they did not last long enough to take that height. So you see these players that are trying to, they just are not in the same category as Quizzy and Vino that you just like say they dominate height. So they were able to get knocked down and they were able to be eliminated. So you see kind of like more mid-game play during the end.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, of course, Pio at the end here tries to make this solo play. A lot of these solo plays, a lot of potential there with the Shockwave Hammer, but unfortunately, JJ just way too aware. You're like, listen, just hold your weapon out, wait for him to actually go up for that, because when you do go up for that, you're just so exposed and easy cleanup for them from the low ground.
That's right. We turn our attention here to the standings as they are after just game number 3. Mappy, Diox now kind of sitting really pretty there in first place. Remember, we do have still 3 more games to go before we kind of like take a look at that final leaderboard. But look at the changes happening here across the board. I mean, just to point out one that like Murstache and Tayson suddenly up 6 places, right out from 12th, now in 6th. I mean, there's even names like Floki and Bad Sniper, like names I kind of didn't expect, not in a bad way, but we haven't seen much of them. They've been under the radar. Now they're like, oh, just kidding, we're knocking on top 5. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, I really feel like that's actually been kind of the story of these 3 games, is that nobody has really like shown out consecutively from game to game to game, right? It's kind of just been like, oh, we've had one good game. I mean, yeah, we do have teams all the way at the top of the leaderboard with more points than the rest of the teams, but there's really been nobody that's like, oh, wow, these guys are for 100% sure winning today.
Right.
That's right. Guess what? Just like yesterday, we got a little special interview. It's none other than our boy, Tokata. Hello, my friend. It is great to see you 2 days in a row. I just need to see you every single day of my life. How are you enjoying all the action so far?
I mean, it's been incredible. The back-to-back. I was here yesterday for NA and now back again for EU, and it's amazing.
That's awesome. How are you liking NA versus EU so far? Like, the games yesterday were crazy. How are you feeling like EU stacks up so far?
Look, it happens again and again and again, but the aggression that we see on EU is like nothing else. I mean, it's been like this for a while now, where EU is always playing more aggressive than NA, and they're showing it today.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I'm curious, we're kind of like halfway through the day. Who are you thinking is going to take it home on day number 1 of the major number 1?
Look, I could go with the Queasy V. I could go with the Mustache Tayson, but I like going with underdogs. Being from Spain myself, I want to see Nako Dan, or possibly even Jarko and Clone, take it home, which are the 2 duos representing Spain today.
Yeah, so some of the players that you had mentioned that, a lot of us think are going to make it, they had some trouble with Storm Surge. How do you think they need to change and adjust to be able to, for the future games, to, make it to the end game?
Yeah, this is tricky because Storm Surge is so complex and it's all about preparation. You need to do your homework for Fortnite competitive, especially when we're in a finals. A week 1 finals, you have to have your routes maximized. You need to be efficient, not only with your loop path, but also having a plan. If zone pulls north, if zone pulls south, east, west, what is my route? Where am I going to position myself to get the most opportunities possible to get these tags on enemies rotating, or even have some third-party opportunities on players who are contested?
So awesome. Well, Tokata, as always, thank you so much. We hope you enjoy the rest of your watch party. We'll see you here for weeks 4 and 5. Absolutely fantastic. Man, just like I said yesterday, I just love Tokata.
Great guy.
He's
great
so
guy.
great.
Just a great guy.
Amazing.
So now, friends, we're halfway here through EU week number 1. I kind of wanted to pose a topic here. I want to get your guys' kind of like initial thoughts. How you guys feel like EU is kind of stacking up against NA? I asked a kind of similar question, but I want to kind of phrase it right. With a global championship later on in the year, how do we feel like these guys are going to match up?
I feel like EU has a lot more respect for height, right? We don't see a lot of people kind of flying up for that high ground like we did on NA. And also, not as many, like the solo, amount of solos alive at the end of each game is different.
Yeah, the solos in NA, you were able to see that they could stay alive a lot longer and they were not eliminated. But in EU, I don't know what's going on, but those teams find the solos and just take them out.
That's right. There is 0 breathing room for these solos, but who knows? Maybe they might find opportunity to get to play the game, or everyone else is just going to shut them out. But that, you know what time it is. That's right. Game 4. It's here. I'm ready. Let's get on that battle bus. Here we go.
Game number 4. The halfway point is upon us. Where you're at on the leaderboard matters so much because you can no longer play your style of play. Seti and Cammy, FNCS Invitational Champions, multiple top 10 finishes in this game, but they stand outside of the top 20 in the leaderboard.
Yeah, you have to start to make things count. We're in the back half and we're back on the battle bus. Here we go. Who will it be to start to change their destiny as we continue through these games? We've had 3 already, and we have 3 more to go. And there is still time, Jacob, right? Maybe you haven't had the best of starts. The leaderboards, the standings are a bit of a surprise to me, right? Not necessarily what you'd expect.
Oh, this could be a good opportunity. Gets the Maven right out of the gates, but 96 HP. This player's before our very eyes. That's the usage of Giorgio and that red eye assault rifle beaming down the hallway, making it look easy. Some chug splashes as well, getting that shields up, and this is where Video Noah Riley trying to have to rethink their strategy after what he thought was such a great start landing on that Maven. Oh, not this again. Not this again. At least Scram got something to work with this time. I know all too well. You go into one of those trailers, you get a mini, you get a med kit, you have nothing to fight back with. This time around, he said, I got my loot, I got my luck. Time to start swinging.
Yeah, at least this time round, they are actually going to win the fight again. I don't know what that is on the day. Is that what, 3-1 maybe, I think?
Something like that.
They've won something like that. 3-1 or maybe 2-2. I think it's 3-1 though. So the Danes getting the better of that POI so far today.
Georgian. His duo putting the shots onto Noah Riley as Vidil's backed up already, trying to get that extra loot towards the outside before making a U-turn right back on in. Don't want to let anything go easy. Don't want to let your opponent capture that point for free. As Queasy and V uncontested yet again. And you can kind of see towards the first game, they land close by. They want to make sure nobody's threatening their loot. And as soon as they find that comfortability, they begin to split further and further away. So that way they just get even more loot than ever before. As Grols, Fire Hunter. And it almost leads me to question, is this a switch up of a drop spot? Were they landing towards Brutal Bastion before?
It is a bit of a change. You're seeing Floki. I'm not sure if he's expecting them here whatsoever. He is sort of moving about completely unawares. And now finally realizing the danger that is upon him. He's able to sort of build his way on out of the situation just briefly. But nevertheless, they're just going to keep it moving. They're going to keep pushing him. His teammate is nowhere to be found. Floki, you've got to think, is only a matter of moments away from being completely taken out of this one, but actually switching up the tempo completely. He might 2v1 now. Oh my goodness, Floki! How has he managed to win that? More times than not, you expect a player to completely just fall to their knees and surrender. But Floki, creating space with his builds, isolating a 1v1 situation, hitting a massive shot there onto Fire Hunter, mantling up and dealing with Grolls appropriately. Wow, what a player.
That's a huge confidence boost. You get the surge. That could be the moment that they had right there. I do believe, you know, don't quote me on that, but Grolls and Fire Hunter trying to have some sort of trick underneath their sleeve, dropping on a team right out of the gate that they knew was split up. But you got to give them all the credit in the world. But on over this one, Mr. Savage, eye drop, Anvil Square battle that's been going on all day long between these two teams. First Cowcatcher going out, trying to stop that build from being able to be placed, but not going a little too deep there.
Yeah, when I see Osborne battles like this, Jacob, I always think to myself, look, let's look at where the teams are in the standings. Is anyone actually benefiting from this fight? Mr. Savage and I drop 32nd. K 30. Nobody really is, you know, coming out of this one looking amazingly in the standings. Of course, you can see Waffler just on the outside of Anvil Square. They're looking to third party this fight, but for both teams, it's sort of a fight that's leading to nothing. And it's a shame when you get these sort of situations, right? You almost think somebody needs to put their pride aside and just leave. But we know that's never going to happen in Fortnite.
No, these guys practice hours, days, weeks, months in their drop spots, trying to perfect every inch of it, trying to get the best loot right out of the gates. As Savage getting pressured from underneath, doors getting knocked on. Coupe doing what he can, but not biting off more than he could chew, ready to back up, reunited at a moment's notice, and even taking this moment to pop that big pot. Even though he doesn't need the 50 shields, he's just getting as much as he can because, you know, this fight could go on for ages. Mr. Savage trying to go ahead and edit through, peeking, trying to go for the shots, but he doesn't have that piece control over the cones, so there's only so much he can do. Ooh, gets the floor stolen from him. Coupe ready to be daring. Cade on the other side. You got to imagine they're slowly but surely taking away the options, forcing them higher and higher away from them. And this is another one that you're talking about. They're just taking such a long time. Not only they're going to have to rotate, all those other teams that were north of them are going to have to rotate into them as well. So this is so important, basically, at this point to win. You can't let this one disengage anymore because then both of you will be in shambles in terms of loot.
Yeah, and even with damage being dealt on both sides, the fight doesn't end, right? You know, both teams will get out, they'll refarm, they'll loot up again. It's one of these really long, drawn-out affairs. Mr. Savage, though, finally maybe starting to feel the brunt force of Coupe right now as he moves on through a beautiful window edit. And the composure was brilliant there, but Mr. Savage even more composed to get out before eventually falling. Eye drop, you'd love to think, is on the way to joining Mr. Savage. But again, just getting out.
It almost looks like they're standing on the capture point and forcing Mr. Savage and eye drop to come to them. Otherwise, they risk getting marked. They risk giving up all that loot as Malibuca and Thomas trying to have a similar hot start to that last game, but a much better ending.
No, not this fight again. We're going to be here for about 15 minutes, aren't we? Hopefully not, though, because it is a 2v1 this time round.
Ooh. Okay.
Finally.
That was a good shot on Thomas, though.
Cool.
Great shot. There goes another one.
Brant, he's not going to go out without a fight.
Third and fourth place are down. Gives room for Queasy and B in fifth place to try to move up. You know how consistent they can be once they get on their stride. Art Skill and T-Chips rotating past Brutal Bastion. And with the Shockwave Hammer in hand, they have their mobility ready. And I love how they're not going into Brutal Bastion to use the static launch pads.
Yeah, anyone in this general area of the map is always going to be fearful of Malibuca and Thomas in that area, right? Understandably.
I like this. regular strategy here. Building up, getting the Storm Surge. Very little to worry about if you can actually land the shots. But so many times you see positions this high up off the ground trying to go for the shots, and they don't land it. So then they put themselves in a worse position instead of they would have went to zone anyway.
Yeah, it can happen sometimes. I think the goal for that team is to hope that things will switch up. Okay, this is a big fight here. And of course, including some of the bigger names in the lobby, Queasy and V. We know they like to take these sort of isolated fights, edge of the zone, edge of the map. And then one against Vidil and O'Reilly, two decent fighters in their own rights. But V is actually down. And that's not what you want to see if you're Queasy. You're hoping he's going to be the one to pick up all the limbs even. But Queasy in a 1v2 against two very, very angry Germans. There might not be much hope for him in this one. Will they be able to close it out in the next couple of moments? You've got to think so.
We've got more people trying to move in. Third party this one. This could be bad news bears for everybody involved. No Riley and Vidil continuously hot on the heels of Queasy. We've seen plenty of 2v1s go down before. Queasy could add just another number to this one. Great shot landed on Noah Riley.
Wow.
As Vidil goes down.
Mixer 1v1.
This is huge, and there goes Vico and Kylie slowly but surely moving in. That third party's there. This could be a great opportunity for Queasy to try to get out alive. Use this as a distraction, grab V's cars, and just run. If Vico lets you.
Does No Riley know, though? Does he know? I don't think he does. He's just so tunnel visioned on Queasy, who's directly in front of him. Maybe now he gets the sound cue. Yep, he does. You've got to think so. As they start to now get aggressive on towards him. It looks like they will try pushing on Noah Riley. Queasy, though, is finally starting to get out. You can see him using that hammer to get away. Vico won't connect with any shots. And so what was looking like such a good situation for Noah Riley and Vidil, an opportunity for them to have a major upset, turns into now reckoning for Noah Riley. Queasy's still in the area, though, farming some brick over by the shore.
A blessing. This is literally a blessing for Queasy if he was able to get V's card. Because now, with all this chaos, another team, a fourth party moving in, is his chance to get out. Try to get V back into the game, continue where they left off. Danger here playing a big part. Vico trying to stay alive, but he finally gets knocked down. Noah Riley with his back up against the wall from one team to the next, trying to make it happen. As Vico not cleaned up just yet. Still the 1v1, Kylie trying to do all he can. Noah Riley not backing down. Huge shots gonna be traded off. And Noah does it again. I said we've seen 1v2s before. EU might be becoming one of my favorite regions.
What have I just seen from Noah Riley? A 1v2 against two of the best fighters in EU. That is no easy task whatsoever. The job is not finished though, because he has another duo here that he has to deal with.
Hey, if he goes now, this is the perfect opportunity to try and pounce. They are weak. They did take a lot of damage to the zone, waiting for this moment right here. But Noah Riley doesn't have any HP to regenerate here. Of any way, so the longer this fight goes, the more danger it's going to be for him as they're hovering over, trying to put that pressure, dropping down a couple of layers. But Noah Riley trying to keep him guessing. The offensive maneuver is going to get blocked off. No entry to that high ground for now. This one is going to continue on.
If he 1v2s these guys, I'm done. I'm leaving. I'm out.
Would that count as a 1v4 or two 1v2s?
It's two 1v2s, but we're just calling him the GOAT regardless. I'm leaving. If he 1v2s, I'm leaving. I'm out.
GOAT Riley. New name coming out. You got to earn it, though. Shockwave Hammer getting tagged up. Options being limited. Builds getting destroyed. And you can kind of see why they're getting so active to take him down. 600 above the damage threshold now. Oh, lightning does not strike twice for Noah Riley.
And with all that chaos, with all that madness, the winners ultimately are Queasy and V, who get out alive and have a chance to play the game. I believe V was rebooted in that time, so.
And honestly, realistically, depending on where they rebooted at, if they do have the heals, if they do have the resources, they could go right back to that fight, pick up all that loot where they left off, and try to take down a weak opponent. That could be a great opportunity if they want it.
That fight happened right by Slappy Shores, so yeah, if they rebooted in Slappy, they're going to be able to get their mats all the way back up. There's an abundance of metal over there. I'm sure there'll be spare loot as well. This game is far from over for that duo.
You see that? See that stat right there? I love that. That just goes to show that anything can happen in Fortnite. Teams currently in the top 10 have less total FNCS final appearances and teams in the bottom 10. That just goes to show that these new challengers are really trying to make a name for themselves.
Hey, look, maybe we're seeing a new era here in terms of EU Fortnite. Some newer names starting to establish themselves as the top dogs in the region. We do always seem to get that almost every year and a half in EU, right? You start to see some fresher names being added to the list of top players.
Depending on where this next zone goes. See the north getting a little congested here. Queasy and Vino make their return to the big screen. Medkit being used, but not too much to worry about for them. They know exactly the position they're in, 113 above the damage threshold. It's barely enough so they can focus solely on trying to get into zone without the worry of having to take the shots, but they got to start thinking of that backup plan as the next zone begins to move in. Medkit splashes onto Queasy, so plenty of heals if they should need it, as Deoxy taking some shots into the distance, trying to build 2 boxes wide, trying to make himself look bigger, like when you're going up against the bear. Just make yourself look bigger. Or is that a mountain lion? Probably both.
Probably both, yeah. I don't go up against bears often, Jacob, unfortunately.
You should try it.
In London, the most dangerous thing we got to deal with is like a fox or something, mate. So I ain't worried about bears or mountain lions in South London, I'll tell you that much.
I might have to come visit you then. Deoxy's trying to just hide his position. You can already tell Augment, he didn't choose staying in the bush, not regenerate health, not regenerate his shields. Hopefully, what he did choose on the other side is worth the trade-off as Scram and Trippin looking like they're in a great position. 12 splashes on Scram alone, 2 big pots. When push comes to shove, they feel like they're going to be ready. And then you add in the bonus factor. They're literally right outside of zone, so they can wait there as long as they want.
Oh, this is a something. Queasy lining up the shot, and now is going to look to push Malabuka and Thomas HD, claiming this higher position above them. Just built up 1 layer separating the two. Malabuka and Thomas, very fortunate Queasy didn't hit some better shots. Very fortunate that I don't believe he has first assault, right? Because that could have went really bad for them if he did.
Luckily for them, though, they have a 6-pack of slap.
Ooh, they'll get some revenge.
Thomas with the 0-point ability thanks to that Augment, trying to get into the box. The shots coming in from all directions. Might have been up more than they could chew. Malabuka goes down. This is all up to Thomas now. Something we've seen so many times before. But does he make it happen? Stays alive, takes the 1v2, and gets a chance to get Malabuka back.
This has been the game of 1v2s. Thomas keeping his cool. And he heard me. He heard me say, I think V is the best player in the world, and he said, Levin, you better shut your mouth. Put some respect to my name. Showing us why he is considered in that conversation of the best player in the world as well.
Well deserved. Well deserved. And that's a momentum shifter. Start to build that confidence back up. These players, they know they can do it, but it's different when you're actually doing it.
Hey, look, it is a momentum booster in the sense of his confidence as an individual, but you have to remember, he is still, you know, going to be hoping that they can avoid situations like that moving forward. Of course, Malabuka was revived, and so at least he's not as a solo left in the game. That could have gone a lot worse for them.
Looking around. Surprised Karmi's just not getting tagged up right now. Just standing at the top of the mountain, not really getting shielded. That whole side of the land. But still taking the shots. 141 below the damage threshold. Not finding what they absolutely need as Zone continue to take him down. Vaniac popping down the shield keg. You can outlast Storm Surge for the duration of the shield keg. But the worry comes once the shield keg is done and dusted. They're still 134 below. Not finding any success here.
Yeah, and so they might have to get a bit more desperate in their approach, and you can see Kami building up. He wants to get above this team over there, and even wants to start pushing on in, or taking shots from all over the server, all over the lobby.
That's a must. Talk about taking risks, taking chances. Vaniac just immediately beams Ions all over. Kami trying to do it, but he gets tagged up on the way there. Great shot by Lushi. Tags him up on the side, trying to get too aggressive. Wow. Kami goes down. Vaniac by himself, resets the cover. Perfectly executed. They take them both down, and that goes to happen. If you fall that below the Storm Surge threshold, you're no longer able to make any decision yourself without consulting Storm Surge.
Yeah, we see it all the time. Teams need to make these all or nothing plays, right? Because they're down on Surge. You just have to get in box and hope they can connect with some shots. But in a lobby like this, it's never going to be that easy.
That's some reason. Trying to get to the zone. They got some traveling to do. Fury working good along with his duo Linear. Breaking through some of the covers, 222. When you're above the damage threshold like that, you have to pick and choose whether you're going to peek or not.
Not bad.
It's Thomas and Malabuka making up for lost time, or at least trying to. And this is what I'm talking about in the second half of the day. You have to realize where you're at in the leaderboards. And if you're that far down the leaderboards, unexpected like Thomas and Malabuka are, a Victory Royale is simply not going to be enough. You have to chain it together with eliminations, but now they become the focus of the lobby. Trying to hold on, expending some mats to make sure that they're as safe as possible, getting into the edge of zone before starting to build up.
And of course, a team that does have access to plenty of Oathbound chests. Of course, with the changes over the course of the season, with more offerables from those Oathbound chests, they're less likely to have hammers, but Malabuka still has one. And that's going to be very important to their playstyle in this end game. Diox again as a solo. Mappy is not around to support him.
Like this, Mustache Tayson. Hopefully they too looking to take form here in the fourth game. Not too many eliminations so far, but fifth zone, sixth moving. These eliminations will naturally present itself, or at least the opportunity will. As Fred gets 4 more points with that elimination, adding to his total. Pretty contested side near towards the bottom. But if you have a Shockwave Hammer, it shouldn't be too hard as long as you wait for that perfect time. Everybody kind of rotating all simultaneously. Wash Player and Oogway right above them. But you got to be careful with all this madness going down. Shockwaves going off. A lot of damage being dealt. Thomas and Malabuka box to box against the FNCS Invitational Champions, who are box to box with 2 to 3 other teams.
Yeah, it's very tight packed right now. So many players all around them. But they have the means. Malabuka scouting, figuring out where it is exactly they're going to be able to hammer through without getting caught up too much in other players' builds when the time comes. You see an aggressive play being made onto Diox, yeah, and he doesn't have the means to defend himself at all. You can see how safe they're even being about collecting some of his loot. The scraps he had, he didn't have much to work with at all. Just knocking it down.
I like how they're not getting too greedy, just like you're saying, taking their time. They know there's so many players just waiting for anybody to slip up, including them, as Optor peeking through. Building, like you said, more real estate, more room to work with, so that way if anybody crosses their path, they can go ahead and take a shot as Thomas does go down, leaving Malabuka by himself. The struggles for them do continue, just like Fury. He's left as a solo. At least he has elimination, 206 damage above the threshold. So for him, peeking through the cone, gathering information, figuring out when the zone pulls, I know exactly what to do rather than waiting for it to pull.
And that preparation is so crucial in these games. 673 above is very nice right now for Howley in his duo. But Mustache and Tayson looking to try and take their position away from them. And they went up for a moment and almost had it. Unfortunately, Tayson taking a big chunk of damage, having to drop down and heal. They want to make a play though, because they don't have much in terms of materials. The hammer is going to be crucial for them to get to the zone. And a long journey they have to make to get there.
Tayson just gets beamed out of the sky for a quick second. Luckily for them, they do have the heals, a couple of splashes on each respective player to try to regenerate as much as possible. Refsguard seeing Hellfire going down, having to stay back, not being able to defend him. That's not a sight that bodes well for any player, but sometimes decisions have to be made as he goes outside of zone. Men missed and chug splashes to work with. 434 above the damage threshold. So for him, it's about playing calm, cool, collected in all this chaos.
Yeah, we saw former duos in the feed going at each other. Mustache taking out Malabuka after Malabuka took down his teammate Tayson. And so now Malabuka with a solo job on his hands. What can he do? He has one already. Will he be able to add to that tally? Trippin and Scram, they've been putting in work so far in this lobby. They were already positioned really well for this zone. And so they've just been able to sit in this area and hold players as they try and make their way on in. Looking very good when it comes to their loot and realizing that height is free. There's nobody playing for it. We have the opportunity to take it. And a quick little build fight breaks out there for a second. But Trippin and Scram now hold the keys.
Gotta imagine their counterparts probably didn't have the resources to hold on to it. Scram, shockwave to the front side of zone. Tripper standing back, making sure nobody sneaks up on them. Knowing exactly their role in this position as Flixie's just trying to make it through the low ground, getting pressured from the highs onto Tripper. They have no minis, they have no resources really to work with other than the 10 builds. No shockwave hammer to get to the front side. Cheaton gets peeked on to the flank. He gets knocked down. Flixie trying to escape. We know he is an escape artist that can outlast so many dangerous situations, and this is his chance with the shockwave hammer to do it again.
Yeah, you can see now the desperation from Flixie. No materials, he just has to get in somewhere and hit a big shot. But Vortex sees him. The ramp flip will give him a bit of time. Some clever mastery there. But nevertheless, it will be the end of his game. Refscar trying to get in. Hellfire's gone. He has to come up big, and it's not going to happen for him. Just doesn't have what it takes to hold on. Was running low. But you can see for Scram and Trippin, taking a hike was the best decision they ever made. This game looks so free, so easy for them. Glubshi and JJ too. They want to try to do a repeat of last game. They want to win. But it's going to be a lot harder this time. They don't hold the keys to height just yet.
Can you imagine what kind of turnaround that is? Somebody who's never qualified for the FNCS finals is going to be able to make those moves at the end game. Cammy and Seti, 6 eliminations on Seti. We called it out. A huge switch up of strategy. Getting into the top 10 is not going to be enough, even though they do it yet again. Finding 2 more eliminations towards the low ground, picking those ones up, bringing his total to 7 overall into the top 6. Quickly maneuvering toward the low ground. If you look at their resources, they are looking like one of the most healthy duos left in the lobby.
Seti is on one right now, but can he continue this streak? Glubshi using that hammer now. He's getting desperate. His teammate is no longer with him. He has 3, but can he find more? Running low on material, down to just wood. These are bare bones. These are struggling situations, and people are trying to capitalize on him. Just having to hold on for his dear life to his ceiling as players are just relentlessly spraying down on him.
Tripper and Scram just not wanting to let this game escape them. They have the high ground. They have everything necessary. Joker's just trying to make something out of nothing here. He has just a little bit to work with. Something is better than nothing here in this situation, including the shockwave hammer as Blotcha becomes his target. Mixon goes out. Joker ends run there as a solo. Glubshi's by himself. Top 3 situation, and he's that meat in the middle of the sandwich trying to make it out alive as Seti and Cammy are one of the last duos left towards the low ground, going up against Tripperin and his duo that have the whole high ground to themselves.
And they're going up. They're using the hammers. We've seen this play before. They take it, but can they hit the big shots? Cammy can. He'll pick up 1. Can they pick up Trippin? It might look like it. Cammy's so low, but he just needs to connect 1 more, and he will. Trippin will fall. Cammy and Seti, they are here. They say to the rest of the lobby, to the rest of the world, you thought we would just sit down after winning Invitational? You thought we had gone? You thought we had fallen off? No. We are them guys. We are the reigning champions, and we are winners of this game. What a performance! A win with how many eliminations? We don't associate these guys with double-digit elim games. Yet they've come out and maybe put on the best performance we've seen today.
Snuck it, double-digit eliminations. I called them out. Top 10 performances throughout the day. Not getting into the top 20 in terms of the leaderboard. I said where you're at determines so much. They realize we're too far down for our comforts. It's time to turn it on. They put their foot to the pedal and never looked back.
In game number 4, the FNCS Invitational Champions finally showing us what they are made of, and a brilliant, brilliant way to do it. We need to take a break and cool down after that one, so we're going to send it back to Zeke to break everything down for us.
Thank you guys so much. First off, before we get anywhere, let me introduce your analyst for the remainder of the games. It's none other than the best Taco and, of course, Mini Miner. Welcome here to EU Major number 1, week number 1. My goodness, Cammy and Seti after last game falling super early. We're like, okay, you know what? Not appreciated. We're just going to come back stronger than before.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a difficult day for them so far. It hasn't really been their playstyle, but this, it seems to be back to normal for Cammy and Seti. We've talked so much about how Cammy and Seti have changed up their playstyle for the whole of the year, right? Last year, they changed it up. They went for high ground. They went for a lot more eliminations, a little bit more risky plays. But now they just went, you know what? Let's scrap all that. Let's go back to low ground. Let's go back to our roots, Taco. And they did it so well.
They're tired of just being in that little bit of a lull. They decided, hey, halfway point, what better time to actually kick it up a notch here? And this is a massive jump in the standings for them as well. But more importantly, Seti and Cammy, it almost seems like they were just taking those first 3 matches to really internalize the lobby. And then once they started to get a little bit more of a feel for things, their development and how they were able to process that information, I mean, I love the way that they just coordinate throughout these low ground features and even made sure to get some utilization out of that aerialist augment.
Yeah, and the difference with this team at the moment in this game was the hammers. They hadn't had the best loot so far today. I saw them on social media. A little bit of complaining maybe from them as to how they were getting a little bit unlucky with the loot. They weren't necessarily getting the red eyes and the hammers off their drop spot, their uncontested drop spot, as they're not used to. But it's looking good for them so far, Zeke. Let's see if they can continue.
I mean, jumping up 25 places to find yourself in 6th place.
Jeez.
That's what a single game can do in these lobbies. You just have to show up. You have to put up elims and hit the consistency factor. At the top, Piotr and Artur now overtake. They just push Diox and map out of the way, say, okay, friends, take a step aside. We want to come out as that #1 seed in week #1, but still plenty of names on this board that I'm just really excited to see.
Yeah, one of the ones that I'm excited to see, Trippin and Scram, of course, having such a solid game in that last game. It was at their drop spot, wasn't it, Taco?
Yes.
It was the end zone was at their back garden, and they were enjoying every moment of it, taking high ground early on, and what a performance.
Helps a lot as well, given that they actually had a little bit of better luck off of their initial drop spot too. They didn't have to worry about their loot being as poor initially, but love this from Tripper and just really taking advantage of having that slight height layer over the rest of the lobby. Unfortunately, wasn't able to close it out with Scram. Scram getting knocked a bit too soon and leaving Tripper in that 2v1 situation against Seti and Cammy of all people, but at the same time, it's the mental fortitude. They might have been eliminated at the very start of the last round, but then they bounced back here and made it the second.
Yeah, and they're one of those teams that you'd expect to do well. You know, they're one of the teams that have a lot of potential. Trippin, of course, doing so well with Thomas HD previously. Scram as well, a very, very talented player, been around the scene for so long. So they have all the ingredients for success. And as you can see, going up 7 places, 4th place for them right now. Doing very solid.
Ryan, Levin asked what I had cooking. Apparently it's what Mini had cooking. He's the chef. Now we want to take a moment to highlight dead side rotations here for the Fortnite fam, the viewers at home, or Legends Landing, wherever y'all are watching from. We appreciate y'all. What did you guys have for us?
Yeah, well, we have Queasy and V, right? These guys have been using the boat. Some of you guys at home might have noticed. And of course, they're landing at the top side of the map, the very north side of the map. And they're doing something very interesting, Taco.
Yeah, it's actually, I think, very important that they recognize the fact, hey, we're probably not going to be able to collect enough surge here, so we're going to start making this rotation. They actually headed down from Brutal Bash and off of that boat towards Slappy Shores, and that's where we saw that infamous encounter. And it's a little bit unfortunate how that actually panned out, but not for Queasy and V, surprisingly enough, because it was Queasy actually clutching out a shot, managing to get that reboot off for V that ended up making it possible for them to rotate one more time through the dead side of zone until they ran into Thomas and Malavuka.
Yeah, well, this is sort of what you need. When you're going for that dead side rotation, you need to prioritize Storm Surge. You need to make sure, and of course, Queasy getting a huge shot right there. A lot of people talk about V's potential when it comes to fragging, but Queasy hitting the big shots to keep them alive and keep them in the game. Of course, in this fight, there was a third party, which allowed Queasy just to escape just enough time, and he obviously managed to get the reboot off just there in the end for V. Didn't quite work out for them in the end, though.
You have to feel a bit, though, for Vidil and Noah Riley in that instance, because it looked like prime pickings for them to finally get a little bit more footing throughout. Some of these matches have been kind of rough for the German duo, but at the same time, you never know what can happen. I mean, we've seen 25 placements jumped already here today because of Sadie and Kimmy's last performance, so it's really anybody's game still.
Yeah, I feel like momentum is kind of like a big factor for a lot of these duos, right? They're just trying to hit the ground running, right? And for each duo, they're having to adapt on the fly, right? I mean, this is still kind of uncharted territory as far as coming. Like, yeah, we have these cups and stuff, but like now this is the FNCS. People might bust out strategies. There might be a duo there you're not ready to see, and you're like, okay, we have to kind of change up how we're approaching the game now.
Yeah, definitely. This is what the new chapter's all about, isn't it? We have the new map, we have the new meta, we have new items, and even using boat rotations as we saw.
Who would've thought?
I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? It's great to see. Even, of course, Cammy and Seti that were sort of an all-round duo, just going back to their roots, going back to low ground, thinking, you know what, let's just stick to what we know.
Such an unspoken appreciation, though, for Europe and the fact that we're really getting an instance of being able to see just how these players can actually all hold up clutch situations, because lots of 1v2 so far.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. And of course, they're all adapting. They're like, hey, what do I got to do in this game? Let's do it. Boat. Let's go all the way around the map. It works out for some. With that being said, though, guess what? It is game time. Game number 5 is on the horizon for us. So let's find our seats on the bus. Here we go.
After game number 4, called at the halfway point, Seti and Cammy got called out, and they rose to the occasion. Unfortunately enough, Seti's out there saying, I didn't record that game. The only game I didn't record. Don't worry, just watch back the VOD. We got you.
I'm really looking forward to it. I really wish we could have gotten the replay of that game from their POV around. I'm sure they would be ecstatic because, again, not a team that we expect to see popping off the way they did. I'd love to see them come out again and be as uber aggressive as they were, you know, in that mid-ground layer, just cleaning up everybody that comes in their way. The big thing is, though, can they continue this? We saw the massive jump they had in the standings as a result of that impressive game. There is still plenty more work to be done. I'm sure they will expect themselves to finish high up in the standings, and we can finally see whether or not they'll be able to move towards as we head into the penultimate game. Game number 5. Anything you want to see here in this game? Do you have any favorites right now, Jacob?
I mean, other than I feel like the People's Champ V, who's always going to be one of my favorite players on EU, I just want to see the resurgence of Seti and Cammy, because if you take note of before the FNCS Invitational was still one of the least aggressive teams, and talk about aggression, back to where we began. They split and changed up their drops in that last game, but back to finish what they left off. Clement and Decepto is going to get that first elimination. Lucy, he's just trying to go around, grab that reboot card and see what he could do as a solo.
Deceptos and Clement, one of our many French duos near the top of the competitive scene. Can they do something here in this game? I'd love to see one of our French duos come out. Of course, you know, we were talking about Anderlecht and Sneezy at the start of the day. Not seeing as much from them as we maybe would have wanted to.
A couple teams. So I wouldn't say switching up their drop spots overall, still going to the same splits, but Tripper and Scram changing it up in terms of not going to those actual trailers, switching it up, not wanting to 50-50. It's too much of a gamble, because we've seen what happened to Scram in a couple of those early games, not getting anything to fire back with, just a mini and a med kit. Cheating on this side along with Flixie over towards Brutal Bastions, as we see a replay of what we might have missed during that early commotion. Grohl's already going down. Fire Hunter literally fighting for his life, takes down Flixie, 1v1 against Cheatin'. But sooner or later, those 1v2s gotta stop.
Yeah, he ain't got that 1v1 juice. I don't know what they've been to. Maybe is it slap juice? Our players taking some slap juice and it just gives them 1v2 powers, maybe. Maybe that's the answer. Something's in the air today.
Could be. Just waking up, having a great breakfast, Wheaties, or whatever it may be for some of these champions that we've seen right before our very eyes, and even these newcomers. Like I keep saying, if you're new, trying to qualify for your first FNCS, and you may not have made it this far, but you're watching, this should give you hope. This should be something to build upon, saying, hey, if these guys can do it for the first time, why can't I? There's another fight going down, but just as we get into it, it quickly ends with Bad Sniper being dropped.
Yeah, here Guden and Forzen on our screens. Cleaning that one up. Guden with both of the LMs. Not too shabby. Now a chance to really make something of themselves in this game. Of course, if they start heading towards the zone in that direction, there will be plenty of players in and around that Citadel area that they can maybe look to pick up along the way. Do need to get their loot up a bit. Not the best. Not what Guden will want to work with, at least. I'm sure they will look to loot up some more.
Facing a Mustache over towards Slappy Shores. When it comes to loot, they have everything at the start of the games, but the actual game itself, not necessarily going their way, but 6th place, that's something that puts you in contention. It gives you a chance in these final 2 games, but one slip up could cost you everything. The big amount of pressure for some of these players at the top of the leaderboard is Fred, Marius have the high ground. It's actually Marius that does have the low ground, that extra angle, trying to surprise attack once the covers get weak, and these players tunnel vision on Fred, who has the high ground.
Fred next, just applying some pressure, looking to claim some pieces along the way. Got the cone, wasn't able to get the floor. Will retake that wall. Again, it's a war of attrition. Playing it patiently, playing it slowly, trying to claim as much as he possibly can in the hopes of their opponents making some sort of mistake.
Don't worry, he didn't see you. That's probably what he's thinking right there. Picks up a little bit of extra light ammo, still waiting around the corner. This is that cheeky play. Frednex is trying to mimic the sound with those impulses. Make them believe like he escaped. Make them believe that he got out. And this is their chance as they're escaping the boxes. They're trying to take these 2 additional angles. Marius peeking through. The patience is incredible for him to not take that shot, give up his position. They're building up towards the high ground. The information's going to be dealt over. Shield's going to get dropped off of Paradise. The cheeky play has worked for now.
I really like that play. You highlight it in a moment exceptionally, right? Using the shockwaves to just bait or the impulses, sorry, I should say, to just bait that they've left. And even though they were cautious, they still took the bait. And we'll see now if they can actually capitalize off of it. Chari, just in that box there.
Ton to work with for some of these guys. It's Paradise and Ross trying to play defensively, hold their covers, but sooner or later you're going to run out of resources, you're going to run out of mats, and offensive play has to be made sooner rather than later, and quickly he goes up, he takes the high ground. Chari, low ground, the two different angles. It's not ultimate low, but he's a few layers down. Frednex with a huge shot, 88. The trade-off is going to work out in their favor, because now Cherry can be aggressive. Nice angle being watched, teamwork making the dream work. But they're just not able to get that upper hand just yet. They're holding on to the high ground, but nobody being advanced enough. When there goes a big shot. One's gonna get taken down. Chari gets taken down as well. This ends up in a 1v1. Maris versus Ross. With covers for both of these guys and no elimination being picked up just yet. No siphon or refresh. They can probably both go for the res, but it doesn't look like neither one want to make it happen. Ross just want to live up and let that pressure go to waste. Great shot going to be tagged off. 100 more shields being disappeared, and he gets the back-to-back eliminations, and it's he who's going to get the last laugh and the res on the Frednex.
Yeah, Giras has had a bit of a stinker there. You see, both players had one of their teammates down, and there was an opportunity to trade the res. But Giras instead decided to go on the offensive and doesn't win the fight. Having an absolute mare. Nevertheless, they will have one more game, one more opportunity to make up for this lost time. V and Queasy, though, will be looking for revenge, not just throughout this year on the way to global championships, but in this game here, sitting currently in 8th, hoping to rise up the standings. But it's all going to come down to how this fight plays off against T-Chips and Artskill. Two very talented players. I talked about wanting to see some of the French players do a lot better in this lobby. This is one of those duos to watch out for sure.
They have the pressure with their backside to the rest of the map. V and Queasy, the only escape plan is the open waters behind them. Chalk continue to get trade off. Flopper's got to work in V's favor as he's trying to put the pressure with the Twig Mad SMG, but no more light ammo to continue said pressure. Now it's down to the red eye and the medium ammo that he has left. It's not a lot of pressure, so he's trying to build up. He's trying to force something, but before he does just that, let's use the Flopper. Let's go ahead and tip ourselves up to tip-top shape, but he gets chopped down, taking a little bit of fall damage from shields along the way, as he continues to be that relentless aggressor trying to take that additional angle. But instead of just the angle itself, they realize this fight is just not worth it. They're going to disengage and try to play the rest of the game. Maybe they'll meet up later, maybe they won't.
Yeah, it's not just about it not being worth it. They ain't really got the mats to deal with this at all. Queasy's just dropped V a couple mats just so he has something to work with and protect himself in case of an emergency. But they are not working with enough at all to be able to handle this fight.
Delay, 8. Whew. Great shot gonna be fired. Still taking damage from the zone. Too far back, has some splashes to work with. But that's gonna be it in terms of their HP heals, so it's all or nothing here. The longer they continue to wait, the harder it's gonna be. The cleanup's gonna come through. The siphon's gonna buy him a couple of extra seconds.
Ruden's right there.
Oh, he realizes, hey, I can't play too defensive. I don't have my teammate anymore. I'm trying to shockwave out, but HP gets drained along the way. Trying to med mist up. Bahat on his heels. The reload saving him a couple extra seconds. And this is basically done and dusted because they need this refresh. They realize they have no heals, so this siphon is absolutely imperative for them staying alive. And they get rewarded with a shockwave hammer on top of that.
Yep, cleaning that fight out. Guden did his best, but his best was by no means enough. That is unfortunately going to be the end of their run. The end of a run. That's been good. Cammy here. What's going on? This isn't something I'm used to seeing from Cammy. And we actually have the one and only Jenny Smiles here now giving us updates. Jenny, what is going on with Cammy and Seti? How do they have a hammer?
Yes, so we see Cammy and Seti have a hammer here. They tweeted out, as Minnie said earlier, that they were not able to find a hammer off spawn, but they did find one this time. So let's see what they'll be able to do with it.
Beautiful breakdown showing us how these top contenders are getting a hold of these hammers, because honestly, we see it so many times that teams, they might have an oathbound chest, they don't get a hammer, they might have opportunities, but they're not able to get the RNG necessary. But Seti and Cammy finding that recipe for success, climbing up to their leaderboards. And that's big after that last game. If they can continue on with that momentum, that Shockwave Hammer is a huge tool for their success.
Yeah, they will be very, very chuffed about their chances now. And they've added that to their arsenal, especially with the kind of shots they've already been hitting.
Uh-oh. Glubshy. They want the rematch along with JJ2. The deal takes a huge shot. He's going to get backed up little by little, going down altogether. That's JJ2 who's going to get credit with the knock. But Noah Riley, the man who's done it before, 1v2, ice in his veins, back up against the wall. Almost feel like these players, some of these players at that perform better. Maybe not that, as he takes a huge shot, forced back even more. JJ2 smells the weak, smells the fear, hot on his heels, doesn't want to let this elimination escape him. Noah Riley trying to back up, using those flashes, buy some time, regenerate the shield as much as possible. I don't know who made the call, Glubshy or JJ2, to slow things down, regroup, get the loot, and we can go back at it a little later.
We know Noah Riley can win 1v2s. Again, we don't want to put that expectation on him, right? You never expect a player to win a 1v2. Or with how many we've seen today, you can never rule things out. JJ2 and Glubshy are being very cautious in their approach here, not going gung-ho. And understandably, especially considering who their opposition is.
So many, look at it, so many heals left by. You almost think they're just going to build, yeah, I'd say build up, get some height, begin to trade shots, not fear the trade at all. They have extra heals towards the bottom. Thomas with crucial shots needed for the damage threshold. Still 77 below, though. They have to continue what they're doing, shooting into bushes, shooting everybody that crosses their path, but still 17 below. With how well they have performing, I don't think anybody in the region has expected them to perform to this standard. They expected much more out of them. Sitting on 62 points. They have to literally go back-to-back victory royales, about 15 eliminations each.
Yeah, they need a big game. They need to start playing at a much higher level to what we've seen from them already today. They're a team who came into this competition as big favorites. Their performances leading up to this part of the season have been exceptional. But it's not materialized in the games we've seen today. We've seen them struggle with Surge, we've seen them have their issues. We've seen that throughout these games for a bunch of different teams at different times. For Polly and Wixie's here, they've not had the best of days by any means. I'm sure they'll feel like they could have done a bit better up to this point.
You can kind of see their strategy. Leaving back some other items that they could probably pick up. Keeping the fishing rod, you got to imagine the jelly angler augment, especially with the jellyfish in the inventory. It's got to be real, just like this team here, sitting on top. Big bush bomb in the inventory. You got to imagine that these augments allow for the different variations in the loadout. No matter what tier some players might think these items may be, you can always think outside of the box with your creativity, as Noah Riley still in that solo position. Video got dropped right below him, 52 below the damage threshold overall, taking damage from the storm, trying to get proactive. And the dangerous thing, as soon as they hear this shield crack in the next 7 seconds, that team below him is going to know he's weak. They know he's down, and they're going to use that as a green light to go.
No, Riley is not in the best of situations by any means. It doesn't really look like there's much of a pathway for him to get out of that one. Vortex and Belusi. Another example of a team that has just been rather hit or miss at times today. And they stand in the face of a team that has been very much hit today, Scram and Trippin.
Really doing wonders here in this lobby, Scram and Trippin. I think maybe having one not so good game, consistency pulling through for them. You can already see 165 above the damage threshold. They know that team's nearby, trying to make the GP plays. Shockwave Hammers up and through their builds. Not going to find any success there, but it was definitely worth the effort. As Trippin just biding his time, waiting for those builds to break to peek a shot through. And since everybody has to rotate, they tried, they didn't get it, so now they're going to go on with the rest of the game. Having to travel through faulty splits, a little bit of a north pool, is going to make they really have to pick and choose, gather the information, because there's about 2-3 teams in front of them, another 3 teams below them, so they are pretty stacked all around. If they want to make this rotation, the JJ2, see this replay of him versus Noah Riley. Noah Riley running out of options, JJ2 just waiting for that perfect moment, even before Storm Surge began to tick in.
Yeah, we knew it was only going to be a matter of time. in terms of what Noah Riley was dealing with. Now they have to make their journey into zone. Fortunately for them, it's not the longest of hikes by any means. Just a couple meters forward. Now they are safe. Queasy and V still in this one though. We saw their struggles earlier in this game. And safe to say, things haven't gotten too much better for them. They are above on Surge, but the materials are
good.
not the best.
It's not it.
Which is a bit of an understatement, to say the least. Jelly Angler, though, will mean that they can get some spare shields. Ooh, dearie me. What do we have here? Cammy and Seti struggling with Surge. Literally one below. Like one damage below. Like as in like they do one bit of damage.
You just need to mean mug them. You get that one, but instead they're taking damage from all different directions. Vortex and Belusi. They also take damage from other players in the lobby, and that's really, really interesting to see with Cammy going down after a double-digit elimination victory royale. It just turns sideways, and everything comes crashing down as Vortex getting into the box, taking over all that loot that they did have down there moments ago. You got to imagine it's Cammy's loot that fell all the way down there. Carmi and Vanyak slowly but surely nearby. Murstache and Tayson trying to last out everybody else. 152 points on the leaderboard, 231 above the damage threshold, continuing with their proactivity, finding the information so that they're ready for anything that comes out of next.
Yeah, they're looking a lot more stacked than what we've seen from a lot of the other teams and POVs we've been watching. They have a hammer, they have good materials. Their Surge situation is not dire by any means. For Mixon, though, this is a dire situation. Blatcher is down completely. And so Mixon having to pick up the pieces.
Pick them up, just get right on out. You can see the loot. He has 2 apples on him. Something's better than nothing. It just goes to show the type of chaos and destruction he was probably playing through and through. Finds the Bush Warrior Augment beginning to play its role here into the game as Joker and Arthur. They have a tower as high as can be, but you see they're picking and choosing which layer they're shooting from, dropping down ultimate low ground before they're starting to make that next rotation in.
Arthur and Piotr make their way into zone. And again, one of the teams that is looking a lot better than some of the things we have seen. Trippin and Scram, they're still in this one. We saw how difficult of a rotation they had to make earlier, and they weren't able to make it in. But just by the skin of their teeth, and now with no materials left. Peely's Plunder's not going to come in handy right now. They need to find something and fast. Fortunately for them, they have some builds here that they can sort of hide beneath. And there is some loot just above that floor. I believe they see it, but they're also aware of the players who are above them, so they don't want to make any sort of hasty decisions. I'm not sure if there's any spare mats in there, but there is some items of some sort.
Depending on what Scram might have, that might be a perfect opportunity, but Paco using the Shockwave Hammer. They know a third team is nearby. Trippin trying to get the cheeky shots from below.
This is so bad. They have no control here whatsoever. A desperate hammer play just to cause a distraction, and a distraction that might just work. Trippin hits a big shot, connects with something, and there's some loot there, and another one from Trippin. Will he be able to close things out completely? I don't know how they've managed to get out of this situation with a positive.
I was about to say that same thing. I don't know how they went in, everything went awry, and they end out with better loot than when they began. That Shockwave Hammer really to play a role here in this end game, as Vanyak, even though he doesn't have a Shockwave Hammer, he must have found a supply drop along the way, which is one of the only ways you can get that launch pad, which is now a throwable. But as soon as he lets that one go, you're going to see some other teams begin to try to recycle it, especially if they don't have any mobility on their own, as Queasy and V beginning to find their stride here in this game, looking like things were in a rough patch for quite a while, but you got to imagine that Jelly Angler Augment getting them back up to tip-top shape as soon as they were able to gather all those jellyfish.
Thomas, Malabuka, we've been able to watch some of the struggles they've had throughout today in another game where that is the case. Malabuka is not even in this one to lead the way. Jelly Angler is going to be Thomas's only saving grace. Oh no, Peely's Plunder, sorry, is here. He drops it.
Something's better than nothing is what I would say.
He needs shields though. That's the point, right? He needs some shields. Regardless of how he gets them, that's his own problem.
Like this being Queasy. Not forcing that ultimate high ground. They don't have the resources to back it up. They're looking for the refresh, trying to stay toward the outsurge, dropping him down piece by piece. It's going sideways. That's Thomas. You got to imagine they probably know he's a solo, trying to take advantage, but at the same time, with so many other teams nearby, you can't go all in, just like Tripper trying to make that cheeky play. Over 100 damage being put on the Tripper and forced to back up, but luckily for him, he still has that Shockwave Hammer, which is slowly but surely charging up, giving him something to work with. And we talked about the effects of a Shockwave Hammer on a solo, so it's not over for Tripper just yet.
Not over by any means, but certainly an uphill battle. Thomas, with just the 2 builds, even less HP than when we last checked in on him. And a very, very big rotation to make. If he's able to survive this, I would be very, very surprised. There's a bunch of different augments at the ready, but not many of them will be able to help him in this situation. And yeah, it looks like it will be the end. Nothing to defend against that aggression. Dan will take him out. The Spaniard having a brilliant, brilliant game so far. Easy picking up one in the feed as well. Tripping looking for some here on our screens. Not able to catch anybody out, but a hammer will allow him to start to move forward.
He's just holding on to the Billy's plunder. Usually you see people drop that. Maybe he's going to find some buried treasure along the way. Highly unlikely, but Mixing's going to find his own surprise, catching somebody off guard. Huge siphon and refresh before JJ2 immediately takes him down. That's Trippin under siege from multiple directions, having to use a little bit more mats to try to stay alive, guard himself on the defensive end. Down to just 5 builds, waiting for that last possible moment. The only duo right in front of him, waiting for them to rotate, but the zone pulls right back. This is a huge miracle for Trippin that he's surely going to take advantage.
Just plays into his favor. He can sit there in some of these old builds and look to sneak up on a team that is caught unawares. But Stash and Tayson, they are looking up at height. They do see vulnerabilities in it, but they also see vulnerabilities on their layer. JJ2 walks right into the wrong box, and that is going to go a long, long way in allowing them to do what they do. For Stroking Hydro, moving to the front of the zone, they want to find control there. Tayson and Stash, though, they're going to do a similar thing, move towards that front side and start building, start trying to claim space. So many players down beneath them, so many players struggling in these situations. All the scuff solos, Glumshy being one of them. You can see he's trying to hit big shots, but nothing's going to come of it. He will fall. Mr. Savage in a very similar predicament with no materials, hopping into a box. One of the best solo players we've seen in Fortnite, but can he make a play here? Jumping in, hitting one, not able to connect with another.
At least he got something for his efforts right there. Not able to get into the top 10 though, as Arthur, the solo player towards the low ground, pressured from multiple angles, walls getting taken. Quickly backed up and backed out, 100 damage right off, but he needs a moment to stabilize, and no one's going to give him that moment. Into the top 10 we go. A fight for the high ground ensues. Deoxy and Mappy are going to be the last ones standing, and the last ones laughing because there's 8 moving tone, only 1 more to go, and they're in complete control.
Diox and Mappy, the game's in their hands. You'd think they need to be careful. I know you want to drop into the storm and get some of the loot, but don't cost your game for it. The hammer will now allow him to sort of regroup with Diox, but Diox found himself in some trouble his own, takes out user. Mustache now left alone. What can he do? He has the one. Can he find any more? Just down to wood. Sees a player above him. He's going to look to try to chop him out. The shield kick will go a long way. Putting his shields back up. There are players on this layer. Sees a player stuck in the storm. The loot is not going to be something that might flow down the stream right into his path if he's fortunate enough. He will go for it. And it goes a long way. That med miss is going to be huge for Mustache staying in this game.
Huge indeed. This implications could mean so much. Into the top 5 we go. Only 1 full duo alive. And Yaxi is going to be one of the 2 players along with Mappy. They possess the high ground for at least 1 or 2 extra zones, and now they're ready to finish this one out. Somebody's trying to contest them, but no, they're going to drop down low. Bring them down to their level. This is going to be a huge finish. So somebody's trying to contest it. Up goes Mappy. Down goes Mappy. He's putting on the damage, making sure that nobody can contest him this high up off the ground. As the only duo remaining, they're just getting tossed and turned. The Shockwave Hammer's not proven to be fruitful for these players that are on the no ground as Mustache gets taken out.
Diox and Mappy, they've been so impressive today, and they're closing it out with a big victory royale. Came into this game in 2nd place, and they might just leave it in 1st. 1 more game left, but they are showing us all why they are one of the best teams in this lobby.
Victory Royale with 11 eliminations. That's looking like a 100-point game for that duo. That's enough to burst you up the leaderboards no matter where you're at, but where you finally stand, only time will tell. But huge plays, knowing exactly what to do. And then the Augments, the Danger Hero. I know we've said a lot about Forecast, but I think Danger Hero might be the best Augment that we've seen so far.
Yeah, it has been so crucial in these moments. You see Mustache being absolutely wiped out by Mappy. These guys are on one, hitting big shots. Diox is no stranger to doing this kind of thing in qualifiers. I feel like for the past year in competitive Fortnite, Diox has always had moments like these, and Mappy very much joining him here as well. A very impressive game 5 from this duo, and definitely showing us why they are going to be moving way up in the standing.
Yeah, and we've seen some of those top teams go down a little early. We've seen some of our mid teams really change up their strategy after the last couple of games. What the leaderboards say going into Game 6. Luckily, we have 3 of the best analysts to break it all down and make some sense of what we're about to see.
Thank you so much, Jacob PR, the tallest man in the world. My gosh. Man, game number 5 did not disappoint. I just got to say, special shout outs to you, Mappy. Just like a clinical showing of how to use that hammer as a means of controlling what others are allowed to do and not do in those final moments of the game.
Yeah, they did so well. And it was one of those moments in the end game right there where they took high ground at the perfect moment. They had the materials, they had enough loot to do so, and this was it right here. They took the high ground with that hammer. As Viv was talking about a little bit yesterday, using the high ground or using the hammer to take that high ground and break all the builds around you, it just creates so much space, and then they held it so well.
Mappy and Deoxy, I think as soon as they saw Nefreezy finish off with the Ilium onto Artur in the feed, that was the moment that they realized, hey, this is our opportunity to actually just take it over. Actually, Piotr, but regardless, the circumstances prove that Deoxy and Mappy, they did not want to leave it up to circumstance. They wanted to take control of their own fate here heading into game number 6, because this Victory Royale on top of eliminations is bound to put them in the first place on the leaderboards.
And at the end here, they were the only duo, and it's very easy when you're the only duo in a lobby to get a little bit too confident and just go for that 1v1 situation, right? So you could see them just taking the fight really well. They're communicating, right, we'll go for this player first, we'll go for that player next, because they knew they were the only duo. They would have looked at the map, they would have looked at the stats on the players, and they played it so well. They didn't get too aggressive where it mattered.
Yeah, definitely. The synergy is there. And now we turn our attention to the standings to see how things are going. Well, for Diox and Mappy, remember, they went into that game in 2nd place. Now they push everyone aside. We are in 1st. Piotr, Artur, we saw them go down kind of early in there. And, I mean, hey, look, you're still 2nd place. That's still fine. How are we seeing the overall lobby kind of shift so far?
It's just the fact that they secured a Victory Royale plus those 11 elims, and it's only a 5-point difference between 1st and 2nd place at the moment. And I think, if anything, this kind of emphasizes the fact that Piotr and Artur, they have been absolutely phenomenal in terms of just consistently securing placements. But I think Artur, for people that might not be as familiar, ever since Chapter 3 Season 3, I think he's always been one of those players that is consistently securing top-end placements. And the 18 elims that they have, and only a 5-point difference between 1st and 2nd, kind of just stands up to this.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, talking about 1st place, Darks, of course, and Mappy. Darks been on the come-up for this entire sort of chapter, coming out of Chapter 3, of course, playing with Waffler at the beginning of Chapter 3. He always looked like he had that potential, you know, had that fragging ability, had the ability, and now paired up with the experience of Mappy, we can see 30 eliminations for this duo, rightfully on the top spot with a Victory Royale to go along with it.
And I think, too, you know, for you longtime fans of EU, you're kind of used to these names, but for some of you, you were like, I've never heard of these names when it comes to EU. EU just has so many players. There's so many people to highlight, and now those players that don't normally get the spotlight, they get that opportunity to step in and say, what's up? You should be paying attention to us as we turn our attention to the top 20. So remember, over the course of these 3 weeks, we're playing for a total of series points. And at the end of week 3, we'll go into a surge week, and then from there, grand finals. So everyone's just trying to play as well as they can for the next following weeks.
And look, we know that as far as top 20 is concerned, there's still ample opportunity for some of these duos to work their way up into the top 10 positions, or even just getting all the more series points collected. But also have to point out the fact that our current top 5, at least for these leaderboards, they're entirely new duos. So we're seeing familiar faces, some familiar names, but the fact that these are new pairings, just finding very solid chemistry to be able to put themselves in this kind of position heading into the final match of the day is honestly just fantastic.
Yeah, and that is, of course, very surprising. Another duo that is very new is, of course, Tayson and Mustache. And a lot of people will be like, hang on a sec, Tayson and Mustache? What's going on? Mustache Malibuka, what's going on? What happened? But these guys are doing very, very well as well. I mean, when you combine the experience of Tayson with the fragging ability of Mustache, we can see them clutching up as a solo in different points in the tournament today, and Mustache once again doing so well.
And I think what Tayson can provide best for Mustache is just someone that has a little bit more composure. I think that we're seeing a lot of discipline as well coming from Mustache, whereas previously I think he was a little bit more prone to being kind of over aggressive in certain circumstances, but it seems here as though he is just staying as close to Tayson as possible, and this duo is just working through the low ground seamlessly. Doesn't matter if it's mid or high ground either, though. It just seems as though they're finally finding their rhythm.
And he played it really, really well with Malibuka back in the day, of course, as well. They were almost shoulder to shoulder. Every single end game they played, it was not Mustache and Malibuka, it was Buka, maybe you could say. But no, they were together and they were all together. And I think he's using that experience with Tayson. Of course, Tayson, the big brain IGL that he is, he knows how to navigate these end games. He knows how to win championships. So I think Mustache just has to have that sort of confidence in his duo partner, right? And when he's able to clutch up like he does as a solo, I mean, there's no limits to how well these guys can do.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. I'm telling you, there's just so much happening. And we already saw this kind of in NA as well, right? A lot of these duos are just saying, okay, if I'm going to make it to this global championship later on in the year, what do I need to do? Who do I need to pair up with to make sure I have a seat at that table? And I think for some of these duos, they're definitely locking it in, right? They're finding that Queasy Vino-esque synergy. But now for others, they're probably thinking, is this what I need to do? What do I need to change up? You know, to quickly kind of change topics, what are you guys hoping to see in game number 6 out of Major 1? I don't want it to end. I want more Fortnite.
I want more Fortnite too, but it's sadly close to the end. But I'm excited to see some of our teams that were a little bit lower down, one of which was, of course, Chapix or Uguay and Ziandi. Those guys could have a better finish. I hope so.
Yeah, that's right. Well, friends, thank you so much. It is that time. This is the last game out of Major number 1 and EU. So, find your seats on the bus. Let's do this.
Unfortunately for us, we are coming to the end. There is no extra time. You must get it done here in Game 6.
Yep, and we talked about Game 4. You have to really change up how you are playing through and through to kind of achieve greatness at the end of the day. Well, it's Game 6. That opportunity is right out the window. You either have a shot or you don't. You're either going to collect the max amount of leaderboard points or you're not. This is really going to come down to the wire to see who's going to take that top position, and game number 6 starts right now.
Let's hop right in. One of the biggest things about today, for me, Jacob, has been the surprises we've seen, right? It's not necessarily been the favorites we expected coming in that have been the ones to perform. There's been other players who have stepped up when necessary and taken their chances, and that, at the end of the day, is something you love to see.
Yep. But I believe Fortnite is all about giving chances to everybody around. Scram's already taking some shots into the distance. The huge 50-50 that we've seen so far, having to pivot, but I think it worked out for him, finding the machine SMG pistol, a heavy shotgun, but taking too much damage towards the flak side. That's going to have him going down. It's all up to Tripper to make something happen, and Tripper and Scram are no more.
That is going to be the end for the Danes. They did their best throughout the day, but the problem with these 50-50 type of drop situations are that they are so variable. We knew that it was going to be an issue for some teams throughout the day, and we've seen it be an issue there for them. The end, no more. Back to the drawing board, back here next week potentially. But QB and Marco will get the chance to play this game out now and really make the most of this wonderful opportunity.
You see, they don't get the drop that they want. They're not ready to 50-50. They split and go their separate ways. They realize this is the last game of the day, the last chance to gather all those points. And for Mappy and Deoxy, you really have your choice of how you want to play. You have such a great lead. You can continue with how you've been playing, what's been working. You could play a more passive approach. It's definitely theirs, but for other teams, Tayson, Mustache, they have quite a gap to overcome if they want to take that first place spot. 101 points to be exact. So it almost goes to show if they want to take first place overall, they need that Victory Royale and they need a double-digit elimination game.
In this final game, maybe we're seeing a change over at the Anvil. Of course, it's not been the best day by any means for Mr. Savage and iDrop. But if they can close this fight here at Anvil much quicker than what we've seen previously, that would be very beneficial. Of course, this fight has dragged out, to say the least, in most of the games we've watched. And it has not been ideal by any means.
Instead of just capturing the POI, Looks like they're just trying to hunt down Cade. 4 more points. Not in the best spot on the leaderboards. Even though they realize the chance of taking first place is out of reach, those series points mean so much in terms of qualifying directly into the Major 1 finals or having to go through that grueling Surge week. And we've seen similar situations like that before, and that's not a situation if I was competing I would want to be in.
Not at all. Surge week is going to be an absolute roller coaster of emotions for whoever has to compete, whoever has to watch, and for us who are going to be commentating those games, right? But I promise you it'll be some fun, so be sure to check that out in a couple of weeks' time. As for the right now, Paco and Marine, they'll be wanting to do everything they can to make sure they don't have to play in Surge week. Of course, even if they weren't to finish too high in the standings today, that is series leaderboard points that they accrue that will add on to whatever they're able to do in the next couple of weeks of the qualifiers.
I like that. Immediately getting that Pilly's Plunder, and instead of going right into the zone, trying to find the safe spot, they're trying to make sure that they have the loot needed to have a good end game. Arthur lost his teammates not too long ago. Big bush bomb going down, trying to go ahead and Cloud, give himself something extra to work with. Another spot to hide. Splash is going to be used, trying to go back, and this is a chance. But he knows Uguay, Wash player, hot on the heels. He's going to try to hide in the box, and the only saving grace is if that's going to be his materials. But piece by piece, Wash player's trying to take one. Uguay's going in on the other angle. Shield's going to get dropped from both of these players, but Wash player and Uguay are going to have the last laugh.
Looking far from washed right now. 2 elims on the game. And cleaning that fight out rather swiftly, rather easily. Kami, Seti will have a hammer again this game. Can they make up for the pain of yesterday? And by yesterday, I mean just last game, where they did go down in a game where we would have expected to see them carry on the momentum from the win they had earlier today. JJ2 and Glubsheet, another team that has won today and might not get a chance to win again unless JJ2 can start hitting some big shots. Glubsheet is down. The hammer play to wall replace. It's going to be clean. Well, not going to be enough to actually pick up the elim, but will be enough to create some space for the revive here at Bastion. Wixis, unfortunately, going to be the one to scurry away. Flixie and Cheating, though, in this area, and we know what they're like.
It looks like Cheating and Flixie are trying to put that pressure down. They wanted to stop the res, but not enough pressure. Not too quickly, and you already see in the feed, Reason and Janice taking out Adalix and Snazy. The fight for the drop spot is going to be solidified here in our final game of the day, gathering as many points as you can. Because you said it, this is just week number 1, week 2, and week 3 after that. You gather series points throughout all weeks, depending on how many you get at the end of the day. Chooses where you advance. You go to Surge week, you go straight to the finals. For some of these competitors, going straight to the finals means so much because they want to be able to control their own destiny. That way they only have to worry about practice, scrims, getting themselves up to tip-top shape for the major final.
And we are a couple weeks away from there, but the preparation you put in now goes a long way in making that final exactly what you make it to be. Mustache and Tayson looking a lot better now. They've started to climb that leaderboard, and they are a team that is going to be a threat all throughout this major.
Be a good way to start the game for JJ2 and Glubshe, from going down, almost having your run ended, to fighting, trying to get 2 more eliminations, but everybody closing in, trying to be that third party, trying to gather the points, steal them away, but Glubshe's going to take down Skyzoo. Gathers the refresh and the siphon. 2 eliminations so far. He knows somebody's left as a solo nearby, spots him out, hot on his heels, taking the upper position, but he hears a couple more players obviously rotating in. That third party, that fourth party opportunity is not something they want to get stuck in, so they're slowing things down and beginning to find a part position to stabilize themselves.
Yeah, that's what happens here at Brutal Bastion sometimes. It can almost be a magnet where you get a bunch of players just sort of taking a peep at what's going on, rotating in, causing issues.
This is one of the areas over towards Brutal Bastion, a lot of static launch pads around this POI. So you generally do see a lot of the lobby population rotate on that side of the map as long as they landed north to try to go ahead and get that free rotation, especially if they don't have the Shockwave Hammer. As Marius and Fred next taking some shots from the distance. have to finish their own loot path. I would say they have decent loot to work with. My only question is metal. Where would they get it? How much do they have? So, gonna be a big question mark at the end of the day. V and Queasy, they have a shockwave hammer of their own as well. So they're setting themselves up. No real contention right out of the gate like they were in prior games. And that goes to show that game number 6 really shifts the mindset of a lot of the players in the lobby.
Yeah, we'll see where Zone pulls, because in terms of shifting of mindset, we know how these guys can get. Not always the happiest about their situation and their circumstances with Zone pulls.
On board Seti and Cammy. They've been very, very active in the lobby since their last Victory Royale, trying to figure out what the strategy is. Jenny, what have they done to get up to this point?
Yes, so here at Frenzy Fields, yet again, they have found a hammer, and they're using it to destroy these trees. The natural cover giving way to make sure they're aware of all of their surroundings. Nobody's going to be able to get anything past them.
Wow, honestly, Jenny, that was a fantastic find. Really showing Seti and Cammy thinking outside of the box. They know so many teams have to rotate through their drop spot, so they're taking away all that natural cover, so that way they can just sit in a high tower that they built and just let the shots fly. Thank you for that one. Beautiful. New analyst to the bunch, breaking it down along with the rest of them. Merstash and Tayson, though, trying to take a lot of what they've learned throughout the day and put it to use in this last and final game. And I expect a lot of these teams here in the top 5 not to get overzealous, not to get over aggressive in any of these situations, because they realize how close they actually are.
Diox and Mappy, 30 elims on the day for this duo. Both of them with 15 each. Both sharing the brunt of that workload. You often like to see when players have those little narratives between each other. Hey, look, I got more limbs than you, I'm the carry. Nope, both of these two even. Even Stevens, Kami, Ranyak. A bit away from them in their 30 eliminations, but nevertheless, a team that has been sneakily quite impressive today.
Bypassing that team, possibly don't know they're there. They're just trying to beeline it to zone, gathering all the information. I think they finally spotted them out, and you can see them slowing down in their tracks, making sure that they gather all the information. Even though you see them not really taking advantage because they know they have to move to zone, they can't get stuck, they can't take too much time this far around. It is a full southern pool of that zone, so all of these north teams are going to have to really think quickly about how they're going to get there.
Mustache and Tayson, they're going to continue to make their move. And we've seen them consistently make it deep into these games. It's just about, in those final moments, being able to stay together, stay alive, and pop off the way we know they can. Nevertheless, even if the game was to end here for them, they've still picked up a bunch of series points that will go a long way. Mixon and Blackchuck will be looking to do the same and have a much better finish. Janice and Reason, who started off the day a lot better than they finished it, have the chance to shut me up here and at least have one final hurrah. But they do have to walk through Mixon and Butcher, who this season have been mighty impressive. Two players who didn't play with each other last chapter are a newly formed duo, but one that has been very, very impressive and very much on the come up.
Yeah, it continues to be impressive at that. The way they just took the multiple angles, dropping down, not letting Janice be as sneaky as he thought he was going to be, as Reason just trying to hide behind the reboot van. He gets spotted out. No free rides for you. As they get 2 more eliminations, 8 more points total. Trying to gather as many of those series points as possible. Everything to fight for. As Glubshy, JJ2, they're high up on the leaderboard. For them, it's not about just the series points. It's those bragging rights you were talking about. But instead of against one another saying, hey, you got carried, I got carried, it's against the rest of the lobby. Hey, you might not have known our names yet, but I'm here to make a statement. And that's what I love to see out of these two. They just got to stay consistent, traveling next to Uguay and Wash player, who at a moment's notice could become a target from these two players. It's going to be interesting. You see them slow and steady, crouching their way in, not wanting to let their position be known. Merstash and Tayson slowly in the distance as well. They realize this team is under pressure. They're going to go ahead and add to that, put some shots in with the red-eye assault rifle, not wanting to get stuck on that low ground. Shockwaving up and trying to go over, but it's not going to be enough. Probably having to use another charge. So all three of these teams congested on this side of the map.
Yeah, they can chill here for a second, though. Now that zone's popped, they know where they need to go. I say chill. When there's a shotgun in your face like that, there's not much chilling you can do. Glubshy just has to get out, but you see where he's actually hammered his way on into. It's not going to be easy for him by any means. They realize he's a solo. They are aware. They only heard the one player glide in. And so Uguay and Wash player are going to go on the offensive, understandably. They see him as free, easy pickings. And so it looks like Glubshy and JJ2 may be out of this game completely unless Glubshy can pull off the spectacular.
Yeah, Glubshy, he's inadvertently helping Watch player and Uguay. The way he's building up, building multiple layers to work with that team that's on the eastern portion, trying to lend that helping hand. Luckily for him, though, he actually put himself on the other side, putting Uguay and Wash player in the middle, so it's them who are becoming the target, alleviating some of that pressure. But as soon as things stabilize for a moment, back to business, back to finding that solo. That's 4 points for a team in their position. Those are necessary points, but Uguay gets stuck. Whose shot could be fired off? Danger here in effect. That's just enough for him to be able to escape. Add in the help from Wash player that clean up that elimination. And that was a huge save to keep their day going.
Yeah, and already we're seeing big changes and big potential for switch-ups in the standings, right? Of course, Diox and Mappy, they're still up in this game, and they've been so incredible that it's a good chance that they're going to stay in first place the longer they survive. But for Kefi and Artul, JJ2 and Glubshy, Trippin and Scram, third, fourth, fifth, all those players, well, second, third, fourth, fifth, a lot of players in that range falling very early on. And so it gives a chance for some of the players just beneath them, the likes of Mustache and Tayson, Queasy and V, to come in and start to steal away some extra series points, if you will.
Seti, that's going to be a huge elimination there because their only elim so far came in that one game where they actually got that victory royale, all 12, that 13th one coming here in the 6th game. For them, it may not be about the victory, but it's about finding that FNCS championship form. They know they have it. Been one of the most consistent team for years. Now's not the time to let it slip through your fingers.
For the team on our screen here, Thomason, Malabuka, 2 of the best players individually. And so far this season, they look like one of the best duos, but currently middling in the standings. And maybe the end to another game for them here. Wow, game 6, they go down. And there's a good chance that they will finish in the bottom half of the leaderboard. Who would have predicted that coming into the day? Certainly not me, Jacob.
Not me either. I'm not sure many people had that one checked off in their bingo board. There's Marius and Fred next. Winner of that one, still putting shots off into the distance. They have plenty of loot to work with. Plenty of ammo if they want to make somebody a target. Talk about plenty of loot to work with. Queasy and V with that 3 eliminations. Finding a treasure trove, almost like a loot llama spawned in there.
Yeah. Finally got a hammer, max materials. They can't complain. Of course, the zone isn't favorable for them. We're all the way down in the south, and we know they like to land towards the north. But nevertheless, I don't want to see any complaining. I want to see these 2 deliver. Of course, like I said, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th all fell. And so there's a big opportunity here for Queasy and Veno to move way up in the standings.
309 points. With those players going down, that all but solidifies who might get first place. But with 26 teams still left alive, there are a ton of placement points still left on the board. There's a ton of possible elimination points left on the board. Just how daring are they going to be to try to take advantage of that opportunity as Tayson and Mustache just peeking through the cones, trying to gather as much information as possible because information is key. And as soon as they spot out no players in close proximity, they're going to begin their rotation in, shooting some shots into the bush. Just double checking, especially this season. You always got to double check those bushes.
Tayson and Mustache, they have to capitalize in this game. They're not going to get a better chance than this. Of course, this is the last chance today. Game 6 out of 6. Hellfire and Refsguard sneaking their way as well. into the top 10 is definitely going to be a possibility for them, depending on how they play their cards. We need a big game, but nothing out of the realms of possibility. And the pressure's on. These guys know how to deliver. Seti and Cammy nearby as well. They have some mistakes to fix. But it's good to see them here in the position they're currently in. Good on materials. Doesn't seem to be too much of a struggle that they're facing. And so this last game truly is setting up for some of our bigger names and the bigger teams to finally sort of have the games we've expected them to have all day long. For Watch playing Uruguay, not in the best of positions when it comes to the materials they have, and so a refresh should be very nice. You can see they're being quite aggressive onto that team over there in front of them in Frey.
Probably trying to knock them down to their opponents that are right above them. Starting in an action that they really have nothing to do with in terms of winning or losing the fight. Great outside of the box play. It's something you normally see for the players that are on high ground, but doing it in the middle of 5th zone, that's going to be impressive. It's Fred next. Marius just peeking through once again, trying to grab some elevation. So that way they use that elevation combined with the shockwave hammer to try to optimize the amount of distance they're able to cover. Because right now it looks like they got some of the farthest pool in the zone. Maybe a couple other players are on that same page with them.
It's going to be a tough rotate for any of those players. And I say any, there's a lot of them. Clearly not a lot of players in this game had that forecast augment, because there's a lot of players that still have to get towards the zone. But the movements are beginning now. You can see all those arrows in the bottom right starting to flock towards this 50-50 zone. Seti and Cammy looking to refarm, making sure that their brick is at the maximum. We know how much these guys like to tarp. And so the more materials they have at their hands, the better and further in this game that they will be able to go. Mixon and Blatcher. I was picking them up earlier this game. Maybe they're going to show the world why exactly. I think they're one of the best dark horse teams in EU this season.
Mixon definitely impressed me at the Invitational. As an individual player, he's got to be improving each and every season. They have the high ground. They have the bush at the top, so they don't even have to hide below the layer. They can consistently stand on top of their builds and look down and all around, trying to put the shots and pressure everybody else in the lobby as V and Queasy. Nobody really having that front side of zone. And you got to imagine, if you have that information, you shockwave to the front side of zone and be one of the first teams there.
And this is a max pull for so many of these teams. It's going to be such a difficult zone to traverse. And we're seeing instantly some players taking the initiative, making sure they get towards the front side, making sure that it's not as hard of a rotation for them. For Cammy and Seti, they're going to have to find a way. Hellfire and Refscott, they're a bit elevated, and so they have a better vision of where it is exactly they have to go. But that doesn't make it any easier, especially without the hammer available to them. So they're going to have to start running, using some of their builds. Of course, the players with the hammers, they're going to be the ones who just waltz their way on in. Fletcher and Mixon, they're going to start figuring things out as well. And we're seeing all these players making their decisions in wisely. Zone moving towards the bottom of this hill, and so a change in elevation will definitely be a something, but Refscott having to play out the rest of this game as a solo. I feel like I've said that many times today, but can he handle that pressure? Can he do it once again?
I like the usage of the aerialist Augment. He might not have the shockwave, may not have some impulses, but he has some mobility, but ends up into the wrong box. That's a decision he's going to regret while finishing and watching the rest of this game. Mars trying to do what he can, stuck in the backside of zone. Now would be the perfect time to shockwave to try to go ahead and make something happen here. The Oxy loses Mappy, but they have a strong hold on first place. 329 points for now. You just want that icing on top, that victory royale to seal the deal.
And Diox is no stranger to a clutch. He's done it countless times. The zone pulled way down the edge of that cliff. And in the meantime, Queasy and V finally showing us what they can do above. This is a team we expected to see on height all day long, and it hasn't quite happened that way. But nevertheless, here in Game 6, they have a chance. They hold the keys. Tayson, one of the best solo players we've ever witnessed, has a chance as well to show us why he has that accolade. A big shot hit there, but he receives a big shot of his own, and now he has to try and create space, get out of this box. This player's pressuring him. It's so chaotic down there, he has to move up, but he has no mats left.
No resources to his name, pressure is on, tries to go to the backside of zone, shots continue to fire. That's User who's trying to get the last laugh. He goes down altogether. Lorenzo, Giorgio trying to do the same thing. The double shockwave hammer as a duo, trying to make teamwork, make the dream work. They get into the same box with pressure on the other side. Shots bursting through, but the shield K goes down just in the nick of time. They have to gain as many shields as possible before this next zone begins to pull. Seti and Cammy towards the low ground. Cammy's under pressure. He drops down to just a sliver of HP.
So much pressure being applied. And at the end of the day, for Cammy and Seti, we know what goal they have in mind. They want to be the ones that claim low. But right now, with what they have, it's not going to be easy. The zone will start to pull, and that will allow them to look to get ahead. Cammy is going to use this time to heal up. Seti has to start to clear the path. And we see revives coming on all over, around, everybody struggling in all their different ways. But for Queasy and V, they remain up above. They look cool, they look calm, but can they collect the victory aisle?
We've seen so many teams feel like they're calm, cool, collected on the high ground. All it takes is a well-placed shockwave hammer to go ahead and bring them all, have them all come crashing down as Seti and Cammy working from backside of zone, staying towards the front side of zone, trying to stay ahead of everybody. Mr. Savage makes his appearance for so long. One elimination, no builds to work with. Luckily for him, he's trying to shoot down that team that does have high ground. That's Vino, that's Queasy, who are hot on his heels, trying to take him out. And he finds elimination and a siphon along the way, but he goes down altogether.
Marco is down below, and he has QB with him, and he has to hit some big shots. QB's fallen, so the pressure is really on now. The hammer allows him to get out if he wants to, but he's gonna fall. Not gonna have what it takes to stay in. Seti and Cammy, they really rule the low, but the zone is moving back up. And as it moves back up, it moves closer and closer and closer towards everybody being squashed together. V and Queasy, they got pushed off height, but not pushed out of the lobby. They're still in this one. They still have a stake in this game. V, so many eliminations to his name. He's popping off right now. He's hitting shots, but he needs to hit just one or two more. Queasy trying to clear a path out. He's building. He's trying to claim space. And V needing help because Seti and Cammy are on their tails.
Final 3 teams remain, and they're all duos for one of the first times we've seen this today. Cammy, Seti trying to go up a few layers to escape all the madness and towards the low ground, but it puts them at the main focus that is that team on the high ground, trying to escape through and through. Resources being expended, but they still look like one of the healthy teams in the lobby. V, Queasy, who dropped down from the high ground to gain some loot, and it's all coming down to this moment here. 4 builds to his name, very little to protect himself. The pieces are not his. He gets denied entry, but he goes out and around to keep things going. Huge shots being fired. Danger Hero once again playing a big role. Does he have both the Danger Hero and the Bush Warrior Augment to try to stay alive? He gets to the backside of zone. 2v2 situation.
He picks up both, and now in a 2v2, they have to win this final battle. They've been so impressive today, but this is what really will define whether they can be possible champions or not. Do they have what it takes in these closing moments to stay cool? We've seen them mess up before, but this is a different type of challenge, a different type of moment. Down below, a reverse of where they would typically like to be, but they've already connected with some absolutely massive shots, made some massive plays, and this would be an even more monumental one. But they're not just gonna have it. The lay is not just gonna roll over. The hammer will have to force them out, and no, V will fall. Queasy now in a 1v2. Does he have what it takes? He does not. Runs out of materials. Nevertheless, a brilliant game, but a victory royale will not be theirs. And what a game that truly was. There was so much going on there, Jacob. It was electric.
It was definitely something, let me tell you that. I thought it was all over when V and Queasy got dropped down to the low ground. They found a pile of loot, and I thought that right there, that was the recipe. That was the ingredients they needed, but it just wasn't enough. Pixie and Wick, they rose to the occasion. When the high ground became available, they just took it.
Pixie and Delay take that last game. Took down Cammy, they stole that one away from V. But wow. Doing this in the last game, that's a different type of pressure, especially with the team they were going up against. But they connected with the shots when needed. A brilliant right-hand peek there from Pixie to close things out. 6 elims for him in that game. But what a way to finish the day for that duo. I'm sure that is going to be exactly what they would have wanted to do. A big smile on their faces as they head into the next week of FNCS qualification. But for the first week, a very, very exciting start for sure to this major.
Yeah, for one of my first times on this side of the pond, I am definitely impressed. I am entertained, and I can't wait to see what these guys have in store for next week. But this one isn't over just yet. We don't know who is where on the leaderboards. Zeke, Miner, Taco, take it away.
Thank you guys so much. Just a fantastic set of games. Massive shout outs to you two, Levin and Jacob. Great casting. My gosh, game number 6, EU. We got to take a look at the final standings. Diox and Mappy, they do hold. Look at that point lead, 80 points. I think I can do math. My gosh, but look at just below, Queasy, V, they jump up to 5 places points. Remember, we're playing for a total of series points over the next 3 weeks. And to start week 1 to be in this spot, this is where you want to be.
Yeah, for Darks and Mappy, I'm sure a lot of people will be surprised as to how well they've done. Maybe it's one of those teams that not many people would have heard of as well, but they have the potential. They've been a little bit quieter going into this, Taco, but they put on a really, really good show today.
They had to have been salivating at the mouth, though, as soon as they read that elim feed and noticed that teams 2nd through 4th couldn't really challenge them for trying to look for an overtake. I mean, even heading into this final match of the day, they had a 50-ish point lead overall in terms of leaderboard standings, but the series points for the 5-point disparity that actually took place. But as far as Queasy and V are concerned, I mean, I think they did a phenomenal job. It's like the OGs heard us talk about, hey, top 5 currently, a bunch of new guys, and then everyone just started coming back and reminding us exactly why these players are so cemented in Fortnite history.
Yeah, this is classic Queasy and V gameplay, right? All the way up on the high ground. They did get chopped down a little bit, of course, chasing down Mr. Savage there, but for Queasy and V, they were just popping off elimination after elimination for V, doing exactly what he can do best. And ultimately, they just played it so well. The free edits coming through down on those mid-ground layers. We talk so often about their high-ground potential, but those mid-ground layers is where they absolutely popped off. They picked up the refreshes as well. And this 2v1 from V on Cammy and Seti, no other than Cammy and Seti. That was beautiful.
Hey, we referred to it as a revenge tour one time, and this might just be a small taste of what's to come, but who knows? I mean, we've seen Seti and Cammy today as well, reminding us all why they're the FNCS Invitational Champions. And, well, Queasy, V, they might have their eyes set on just winning out for Major 1.
Man, it did cost them everything there, though, in the finals. The final moments, they couldn't get the victory out, but hey, listen, the damage was done. Cammy and Seti, and of course, Queasy V, top 3 after game number 6. Huge shakeup in the standings. Just overall looking at the final set here, I mean, even Pixie and Delay here, 10 placement points. Again, you just need one good game. One good game to turn everything around, and suddenly you're knocking on top 10.
And that was their good game, that final game, closing out strong. And these guys have Mr. Savage to thank for this game, of course, because Mr. Savage, remember, he chopped out Queasy and V, removing them of their high ground elevation. And then Pixie and Delay, they thought, you know what, actually, that's a perfect opportunity. Queasy and V, they were fighting on the mid-ground layers because Savage chopped them out. Let's take high ground. Let's take on that challenge. And they did it so well. And they were very, very patient there at the end.
And you can really tell just how distracting a lot of these endgame moments can be, because the fact that Pixie had an opportunity to actually res Delay after being knocked, I think that is such a rare occurrence within itself. So a lot of composure, I think, from this duo to not panic, to not just immediately assume, I've got to leave you to the wolves and just see where I can clutch out on my own.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how well they can do. Of course, they had a really, really solid end to today, 24 eliminations for this duo. Really, really strong performance. They just didn't have quite the best consistency. They didn't have all of those games coming together, and it wasn't ideal, but they managed to pick up games where it matters most. We saw their potential in that final game.
Yep.
Hopefully, next week they can continue if they qualify.
And that's a great way to look at it, right? These are learnings, right? You go from we have 3 weeks to play. So let's just take what we learned in week 1, let's apply that in week 2, and then to finally week number 3. As a reminder, why don't we take a quick look at the broadcast schedule? If you've enjoyed what you've seen, don't forget, we're here every weekend for 5 weeks. March 4th, 5th, the conclusion of Major number 1. Remember, the duo in first place, $200,000. Acts of Champions and a secured spot to the Global Championships. I mean, come on. There's so much to play for. Now, before we say goodbye, let's head on down. Let's meet up. I locked eyes with 11. I just thought, I like that guy. He's pretty cool. Jacob PR as well, my friends. Let's get some closing thoughts on the day. EU, I feel like they stepped up. I mean, the action in NA yesterday was amazing, but EU also brought it.
Well, it's weird because it's a different type of step up, right? Because I think a lot of people would have came into today with their favorites. The big ones, of course, being Malibuka and Thomas. Those guys didn't quite have the kind of performance you would have expected. But in terms of stepping up, yeah, I think we saw some of the players maybe you consider in the tier 2, tier 3. They're the ones that really sort of rose to the occasion. And I love that Percy, right? It adds a bit more parity to the region.
Yeah, no, I gotta agree with that sentiment. I'm always the fan of those newcomers, the people that don't necessarily have the accolades and the fan base, really rising to the top and saying, hey, I'm here, I'm ready to take over Fortnite.
And we were surprised, I think everyone was surprised about how Thomas HD, Malibuka didn't quite perform as well, especially since there wasn't too many changes around them. There wasn't too much change. Their drop spot, they stayed the exact same. They weren't contested. So it was like, hang on a sec, what's going on? What has changed? Maybe it was the other teams that were around them that were fighting. Of course, Taka, you were mentioning it earlier, made it really, really difficult for them to get those Storm Surge tags, and they had to expend a lot of materials, a lot of health, of course, early on to do that.
It just speaks a lot to how competitive the whole of EU is when you see so many different teams actually being able to work their way into those top 3 end games. And I think more importantly of all, we saw just so much potential with a lot of these newer duos as well that I think almost anything can happen at this point, because there was no single duo that managed to control the top of the, or as far as placement was concerned, winning out for victory royales each round.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. A lot of these veteran players, the Vanguard, they're being looked at like, hey, what's happening here? You gonna let this happen? Week 2 might look very, very different. But that is it for us, at least this weekend. Thanks for hanging out with us, watching some incredible Fortnite matches. Remember, next weekend, we're back, same time, same great place. As always, we love y'all. Keep yourself safe. We'll see you on that battle bus.
Beep, beep, beep.